Flying over a valley in Afghanistan are two A-10 Warthogs. An A-10 is a heavily armored, low-flying, slow aircraft designed to provide ground cover for troops on the ground. And on this night, it's a very, very cloudy night. There's storms in the area. And these two planes hanging up above, just waiting in case anybody down below needs help. Up there, it's gorgeous. The moon is bright. There's thousands of stars in the sky. The clouds look like the snow had just fallen. Down below in the valley, however, there were 22 Special Operations Forces troops trying to make their way through the country, and they could feel that something was wrong. They felt uneasy. One of the pilots up above, call sign Johnny Bravo, and yes, he stands like this. He could feel their unease listening to them over the radio, so he decides he was going to go down below the cloud and just have a look. He tells his wingman, hang out up here, I'll go see what there is. And he points his plane down into the clouds. And as he's going through the clouds, the call comes over the radio. Troops in contact. Troops in contact is what they say when they come under effective fire. It means they're in trouble. So now Johnny Bravo points his plane straight down. The plane's getting thrashed about in the turbulence. And when he comes out below the clouds, he's less than 1,000 feet off the ground, and he's flying in a valley, cliffs on both sides. Now, this is only 2002, and the planes were not yet equipped with ground-hugging radar, and worse, they were using old Russian maps. That's all they had at the time. And the sight that greets him is something like he's never seen before, not in training and not in the movies. He sees tracer fire coming from all sides of the valley, pointed right in the middle where the American forces are. And so he picks a point and starts to lay down suppressing fire. And he's flying, and he's in danger of hitting the cliff, of course. He knows his speed, he knows his distance from the map, and he literally counts out loud while he lays down the suppressing fire. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. Pulls hard on the stick, pulls back up into the cloud, comes down around again. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000. Good hits, it says over his radio. And again, he comes around. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. He runs out of ammunition. Fuel is fine. Flies back up to the top of the cloud, tells his wingman, you need to get down there. His wingman isn't sure about the conditions, so the two of them fly back down together. His wingman lays down the suppressing fire, and Johnny Bravo counts as they fly 3 feet apart from each other, wing to wing. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000, up and around again. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4, 1,000, 5, 1,000. That night, 22 Americans went home alive with 0 casualties. My question is where do people like Johnny Bravo come from? Who are they? Who would risk their lives for others so that they may survive? I asked Johnny Bravo. I asked him, why would you do it? Why would you risk your life so that others may survive? And he gave me the same answer that everybody in his position gives, because they would have done it for me. Now, if you think about it, in the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. We have it backwards. Wouldn't you like to work in an organization in which you have the absolute confidence, the absolute knowledge that other people that you may or may not know who work in the same organization as you would be willing to sacrifice themselves so that you may survive? And I'm not talking about giving your life. I mean, we don't even like to give up credit, you know? So where do people like Johnny Bravo come from? Well, it's an age-old question. They're not born. They're actually made. If you look at the human animal is like a machine. There are systems inside our bodies that are trying to get us to do things that are in the interest of the survival of the human animal, right? Just like in a business, in a company, if you want people to do something, you offer them some sort of positive or negative incentive to direct the behavior, right? So if you want people to achieve a certain goal, you offer them a bonus if they achieve that goal, and they'll work towards that goal because they want the bonus. It's a very simple system. The human body works exactly the same way. It works exactly the same way. Inside our bodies are chemicals that are trying to get us to do things that are in the best interest of us. If you've ever had a feeling of happiness, pride, joy, love, fulfillment, all of these feelings that we have are chemically produced feelings. And they're produced by 4 chemicals predominantly. These are basically responsible for all of the feelings that I would generically call happiness. They are endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin, EDSO. These two chemicals, endorphins and dopamine, I like to call these the selfish chemicals because you don't really need anybody's help to get them, right? Let me tell you a little bit about what they are. Endorphins. Endorphins are designed to do one thing and one thing only: mask physical pain. That's it. That's what they do. If you're a runner, if you've ever gone and done heavy exercise, you've heard of an endorphin rush or a runner's high. Basically what's happening is when that runner's out there pushing their bodies harder than they've ever pushed before, they feel good. And when they're done with their run, they feel fantastic. And then an hour later, they're in pain for damage they caused their muscles an hour before, right? This is what endorphins are designed to do. They're designed to mask physical pain. The caveman reason for this stuff, because this stuff is all from 50,000 years ago, understand, Homo sapien existed at the same time as other hominid species, and yet we survived and they didn't. What is it about this species that's so good at survival and thriving? Look at the world we've built. It's not just that we're smart. We're certainly not the strongest and we're certainly not the smartest. It's that we're social animals. We have to do things together. We have to look after each other, and we have to work together to ensure that we survive, that we do well. This is how we're designed, right? These chemicals are trying to make that happen. So in these caveman times, 50,000 years ago, Paleolithic era, we had to eat. We're not the strongest, we're not the fastest. But there's one thing that the human animal is made for: endurance. We could track an animal for hours and hours and hours and miles and miles and miles. And if we were tired, we'd keep going. And if we got injured or we had to bring the food back to the cave, we'd continue to do it. And it was so good, it felt so good, that maybe we'd even volunteer to go hunting the next day, just like we get addicted to exercise, right? Oh my God, it was so much fun yesterday. I will totally go hunting tomorrow, right? Good system for the survival of the group. Good system. By the way, the reason laughing feels good is because of endorphins. You're actually convulsing your internal organs, and endorphins are masking the physical pain. I'm sure everybody here has laughed so much that the endorphins eventually run out and you go, stop, stop, it hurts. Endorphins, they feel good. Dopamine. Dopamine is the feeling that you found something you're looking for, or that you accomplished something you set out to accomplish. So you know that feeling you get when you cross something off your to-do list? That's dopamine. Feels awesome. You know when you have a goal to hit and you achieve that goal, you're like, yes! You feel like you've won something, right? That's dopamine. The whole purpose of dopamine is to make sure that we get stuff done, right? The historical reason for dopamine, we would never eat if we only waited until we got hungry, because there's no guarantee that we would find food. So dopamine exists to help us go looking for food. We get dopamine when we eat, which is one of the reasons we like eating. And so when you see something that reminds you of something that feels good, we want to do the behavior that helps us get that feeling, right? So let's say you're out there going for a walk and you see an apple tree in the distance. You get a small hit of dopamine. And then what it does is it focuses us on our goals. And now we start walking towards the apple tree. And as the apple tree starts to get a little bigger, we feel like we're making progress. You get another little shot of dopamine and another little shot of dopamine until you get to the tree and you're like, yes! Okay? This is why we're told you must write down your goals. Your goals must be tangible. There's a biological reason for that. We're very, very visually oriented animals. You have to be able to see the goal for it to biologically stay focused, right? If you don't write down your goals, if you can't see your goals, it's very hard to get motivated, to get inspired. For example, think about corporate visions, right? A corporate vision has to be something we can see, right? That's why it's called a vision. You can see it, right? To be the biggest, most respected, to be the fastest growing are not visions. They're nothing, right? What does that even look like? Respected by whom? Your mother? Yourself? Your friends? Your shareholders? Who knows? What's the metric? Dunno. It's amorphous, doesn't motivate us. Just like I can't tell you, you will get a bonus if you achieve more. You're going to ask me, how much more? I'm going to say, more. Doesn't work. You need a tangible goal. You need a tangible goal, right? Here's a great vision. Martin Luther King, I have a dream that one day little black children and little white children will play on the playground together and hold hands together. We can imagine that. We can set our sights on that. And every time we achieve a goal and achieve a metric and achieve a milestone that makes us feel like we're making progress to the vision we can see, we keep going and going and going until we achieve something remarkable. You have to be able to see it. Dopamine. Like I said, dopamine is the feeling you get when you set out to find something you're looking for as well. Talked about the to-do list. I came home from a trip just a couple days ago, and I had a bunch of errands to run, and I wrote down a little list of things I had to do, and off I went, right? And as I was walking past, I think it was the dry cleaners, I don't remember. I was walking past something, I remembered, oh, I have to do that, and I hadn't written down on my to-do list. So I went in and finished what I needed to do, and then when I came out, I then wrote it on my to-do list and then crossed it out. Because I wanted the dopamine. Feels good. Dopamine comes with a warning. Dopamine is highly, highly, highly addictive. Here are some other things that release dopamine. Alcohol, nicotine, gambling, your cell phone. Oh, you think I'm joking? Okay, we've all been told that, if you wake up in the morning and you crave a drink, you might be an alcoholic. Well, if you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do is check your phone before you even get out of bed, you might be an addict. If you walk from room to room in your own apartment holding your telephone, you might be an addict. When you're driving in your car and you get a text and your phone goes beep. We hate email, true. We love the beep, the buzz, the ding. Oh. Right? You'll be there in 10 minutes, and yet you have to look at it right now. You might be an addict. And even if you read it and it says, are you free for dinner next Thursday? And you have to reply immediately, you can't wait the 10 minutes, you might be an addict. And for all you Gen Ys out there who like to think that you're better at multitasking because you grew up with the technology, then why do you keep crashing your cars when you're texting? You're not better at multitasking, you're better at getting distracted. In fact, if you look at the statistics, ADD and ADHD have, diagnoses of ADD and ADHD have risen 66% in the past 10 years. Okay, ADD and ADHD is a frontal lobe disorder, right? Are you telling me out of nowhere 66% of our youth have a frontal lobe problem? Where did that come from? No, it's a misdiagnosis, right? What are the symptoms of a dopamine addiction to technology? Distractibility, inability to get things done, easily distracted, shortness of attention. It's all the same thing, so we misdiagnose things. It's the addictive quality of dopamine. We can also get addicted to performance in our companies when all they do is give us numbers to hit, numbers to hit, numbers to hit, and a bonus you get, and a bonus you get, and a bonus you get. All they're doing is feeding us with dopamine, and we can't help ourselves. All we do is want more, more, more. It's no surprise that the banks destroyed the economy, because one of the things we know about dopamine addict is they will do anything to get another hit, sometimes at the sacrifice of their own resources and their relationships. Ask any alcoholic, gambling addict, or drug addict. Ask them how their relationships are doing and if they've squandered any of their resources. It's an addiction. Dopamine is dangerous if it is unbalanced. It is hugely helpful when in a comfortable and balanced system, but when unbalanced, it's dangerous and it's destructive. You don't need anybody's help to get these. Go for a run, achieve your goals, you'll get dopamine. You'll get endorphins. But you won't have any feeling of fulfillment or love or trust. That's where these come in. These are attempting to manage these. This is what makes our society great. This is where people like Johnny Bravo come from. It's because of these two chemicals that leaders really fulfill their great responsibility. Outside in the world is danger at all times for various reasons. In caveman times, that danger may have been, a saber-toothed tiger. It may have been the weather. It may have been a lack of resources. It may have been, who knows, any number of things. Things that with no conscience are trying to kill you. They want to end your life. And so how do we survive? We work together. And together, we come together in our groups, in our companies, in our tribes, to feel like we belong, to be around people who believe what we believe, so that we may feel safe. When we're surrounded by people who have our best interests in mind and we feel safe, we will organize ourselves and cooperate to face the dangers externally. Don't forget, the outside dangers are a constant. In a modern world, the outside dangers may be your competition that's trying to put you out of business, or at least steal your business. It might be the ebbs and flows of the economy. It might be terrorism. All of these unknowns, all trying to put you out of business, take away your job, take away your livelihood, end it for you. Nothing personal. It's a constant. Inside our organizations, the dangers we face are not a constant. They are a variable. And they are the decisions of leadership as to how safe they make us feel when we go to work. This is the job of leaders. Aesop said it better than I can. There's an Aesop fable about 4 oxen that stand tail to tail. And whenever the lion tries to eat them, no matter what angle from which he attacks, he will always be met with horns. However, due to infighting and disagreements, they separate and they go and graze in different parts of the field. And one by one, the lion picks them off and kills them all. When we stand together, we can more easily face the dangers outside. When we break up inside our companies, if our leaders don't allow us a space to feel safe inside our own companies, to feel like we belong, then we're forced to exert our own energy to protect ourselves from each other. And, by the way, expose ourselves to greater danger from the outside. If you have to worry about politics, if you have to worry about someone stealing your credit, if you have to worry about your boss not having your back, think about the energy you invest, not in your business, not in the products you're trying to develop, not in your work, not in how great you're producing, not in your creativity, but in just keeping yourself feeling safe. This is destructive. The responsibility of leadership is 2 things. 1, to determine who gets in and who doesn't get in. This is what it means to start with why. What are our values? What are our beliefs? Who can we allow in? Second thing is to decide how big this is. How big do we make the circle of safety? How big do we make the circle of belonging? Do we keep it around just our C-level executives and call it an inner circle and allow others to try and fend for themselves and maybe try and get into our inner circle? Or do we extend it to the outermost edges of the organization? Great leaders extend the circle of safety, the circle of belonging, out to the outermost edges. So the most junior person feels like they belong, feels safe, feels like they have top cover from somebody like Johnny Bravo. That's what these other 2 chemicals are trying to do. Serotonin is the leadership chemical, is responsible for feelings of pride and status. This is why public recognition is very important. We are social animals, and we need the recognition of others. This is why we have the Oscars, and this is why we have public awards events. This is why we have commencement for graduation. I mean, think about it. What does it really take to get to graduate college? You need to pay your bills, fulfill the minimum requirements, and collect enough credits. That's it, right? It's a formula. You could get an email that says, congratulations, you fulfilled all the requirements for graduation. Enclosed, please print out the PDF of your diploma. P.S. magna cum laude, right? Wouldn't feel so good, right? So instead, we have a big ceremony to recognize the accomplishment. And in the audience, we put our family and our friends and our teachers, all of those in our tribe who've supported us and watched our backs as we've made it through. And then we show up on that day, and we go up on that stage, and we take our diploma. It feels great. We feel our status rise. We feel our pride go up. And by the way, when you have serotonin in your veins, your confidence goes up also. And here's the best part about serotonin. At the exact moment that you took your diploma and you felt that surge of serotonin go through your body, at the exact moment, your parents sitting in the audience also got a surge of serotonin and also felt an intense pride watching you graduate. And this is what serotonin is trying to do. It is trying to reinforce the relationship between parent and child, boss and employee, coach and player, the caregiver and the one who is grateful for the support they are given. And think about it. Think of the speeches that we give. If you give an award to somebody, what do they say? I couldn't have done it. I thank God. I thank my parents. I thank my coach. We thank the person who we believe was looking out for us. We could not have done this without them, we say. And they look at us and they say, so proud of you. And we work to make them proud. Great teams don't want to win the trophy. Great teams want to win one for the coach. They want to make the coach proud. We want to make our parents proud. And it raises our status, and it raises our confidence, and it feels good, and we in turn will look after others so that they may accomplish the same. This is what serotonin is trying desperately to do. The problem is you can trick serotonin. We live in a materialist society, so we judge status very often in our country based on how much money you make, right? So any conspicuous display of wealth raises your status. This is why they put the logos on the outside. No good on the inside, nobody can see them. We want the red line of our Prada glasses. How good, you own a pair of designer shoes, how good does it feel to put on your Gucci shoes? Oh my God, it feels so good. You walk out and you feel $1 million. You can actually feel your confidence rise when you put on the stuff, right? Because it's showing this display of status. It feels great. The problem is there was no real relationship that was reinforced because of it. You tricked the system. That's why we keep trying to accomplish things and accumulate more and more material goods, and yet we never feel successful because there was no relationship. We tricked it. We gamed it. Serotonin is the leadership chemical. The reason I call it the leadership chemical is a historical reason, a very simple historical reason. We had a very practical problem as our animal was developing, as the Homo sapien was developing. We lived in communities of about 100 and 150 people. And there's a very practical issue, which is if we're hungry and somebody brings back food and drop a carcass on the floor, we're all going to rush in to eat. And if you're lucky enough to be built like a linebacker, you will elbow your way to the front. And if you're the artistic one of the family, you get the elbow in the face. Not a good system to keep the whole tribe alive, and definitely not a good system for cooperation. Because remember, the value of group living means that if I trust you and you trust me, I can fall asleep at night and trust that you will alert me to danger. If I don't trust you, I can't go to sleep at night. It's the same in our companies. If we trust each other, we will turn our backs, we will take risks, we will innovate, we will do things that will change the course of our world. If I don't trust you, I can't do that. I can't do that. There's value in group living and group working. And so if you got an elbow in the face that afternoon, odds are very high that you're not going to wake the guy who punched you if danger's there. You're just not going to do it. Bad system. And so we evolved into hierarchical animals. We're constantly assessing and judging each other, constantly arranging ourselves. Who's the alpha? Who's the dominant? Who's the one who sort of is the more dominant personality or dominant talent in the room? In caveman times, it might have been physical muscle. In a creative industry, it might be talent. In the military, it might be courage. There's no standard by which we judge alphas. It's relative to the industries we're in. And it's relative to us as well. If you've ever met someone and you were nervous while you were meeting them, you're not the alpha. We've all had the experience where we're meeting somebody and we can sense that they're nervous meeting us. You're the alpha. I'll tell you a little aside that's kind of funny. You know when women all live together, their menstrual cycles align, right? Assuming they're not on the pill, then it doesn't work, right? But if they're not on the pill, all the menstrual cycles go together on the same schedule. It's not arbitrary. They always align with the alpha female's schedule. And the reason is because when a woman is in her menstrual cycle, she can't bear children. And so in evolutionary terms, you want the alpha male and the alpha female to do it so you can have alpha children, right? Nice, strong, strapping kids are going to survive. But if she's off the market, that produces competition. So Mother Nature has created a very clever way that when she's off the market, everyone's off the market. Back to the talk. So we're constantly judging and assessing each other who's alpha, right? And what we do is when we assess that someone else is the alpha, we voluntarily take a step back and allow them to eat first. Alphas get first choice of meat and first choice of mate. Good system. Good system. The alpha gets to eat first. The rest of us may not get the best cut of meat, but we will get to eat eventually and we won't get an elbow in the face. Good system. We'll happily alert them to danger later. Good system. This is why we're constantly trying to raise our status, is because there are benefits to being the alpha. People will do things for us and step back and offer us favors, right? To this day, we're perfectly comfortable giving special treatment to our alphas. No one has a problem that your boss makes more money than you. You might think he's an ass, but you don't have a problem that he makes more money. Nobody has a problem that somebody who outranks us at work has a bigger office than us. Doesn't offend us. It is deeply ingrained in us. We happily step aside and allow our alphas first choice of meat and first choice of mate. It's good to be the king. There are advantages that come with being the alpha. You get special treatment. You get to eat first. People show you love and respect. It boosts the serotonin. You walk around like this. It boosts your confidence. It's awesome. But it comes at a cost. You see, the group is not stupid. We're not giving all of that stuff away for free. Leadership, alpha, comes at a cost. You see, we expect that when danger threatens us from the outside, that the person who's actually stronger, the person who's better fed, and the person who is actually teeming with serotonin and actually has higher confidence than the rest of us, we expect them to run towards the danger to protect us. This is what it means to be a leader. The cost of leadership is self-interest. If you're not willing to give up your perks when it matters, then you probably shouldn't get promoted. You might be an authority, but you will not be a leader. Leadership comes at a cost. You don't get to do less work when you get more senior. You have to do more work. And the more work you have to do is put yourself at risk to look after others. That is the anthropological definition of what a leader is. This is why we're so offended by these banker boys who pay themselves astronomical salaries. It has nothing to do with the number. It has to do with the fact that they have violated a deep-seated social contract. We know that they made all of that money and allowed their people to be sacrificed. In fact, they may have sacrificed their people for the money. If I told you we're going to give $150 million to Nelson Mandela, would anyone have a problem with that? Nope. $250 million to Mother Teresa. Got an issue with it? Nope. It's not the number. It's not the amount of money they make. It's that we are deeply and viscerally offended that we know that we allowed them to have this alpha position and they did not fulfill their responsibility of the alpha. They're supposed to sacrifice themselves for us. Never sacrifice us for themselves. This is why we're angry and offended and don't trust them. They fail. Oh, there's more. Oxytocin. This is the best chemical of all. Oxytocin is the feeling of love and trust and friendship. It's all the warm and fuzzies. It's all the unicorns and rainbows. It's the reason we like to spend time with our friends even if we don't do anything with them. We just sit and watch TV. We love their company. I promise you, nearly every single person sitting in this room today chose the person they're sitting next to. You're not sitting next to a stranger. You're sitting next to somebody you met, came with, or kind of know a little bit. Why? Because it makes you feel safer, doesn't it? If you got up and went and sat next to strangers, wouldn't feel so good. That's the feeling of oxytocin. Oxytocin is that intense feeling of safety that someone's got your back. There are multiple ways you can get oxytocin. One way to get it is physical contact. Hugging feels wonderful, right? When women give birth to children, huge surge of oxytocin in their body. This is what's responsible for the mother-parent, the mother-child bond, right? It's all that oxytocin in the system. This is why shaking hands matters. Imagine you're doing a deal with someone and you're ready to sign the contract and you say, I'm so excited to do business with you. And they go, I don't need to shake, let's sign the contract, I'm also excited to do business with you. And you go, great, well let's shake on it then. They go, no, I agree to all the terms, let's get this deal done, I can't wait to work with you. You might get everything you want in the contract, but business, relationships are not rational. They're about feeling safe, they're about feeling we belong, it's human. And one of the ways we want to know that that relationship is solidified is with physical touch. Their simple refusal to touch you, to exchange that oxytocin, means one of two things will happen. You will either completely scuttle the deal or you will go into it nervous. Human bonds matter. Another way you can get oxytocin is through acts of human generosity. An act of human generosity is defined as giving of your time and energy and expecting nothing in return. Money doesn't work, sorry. If I told you that this morning I gave $1,000 to charity, what would you think of me? You'd be like, Good for you. What, do you want a medal? But if I told you that last Saturday I gave up my day and I went and painted schools in the inner city, then what would you think? You'd be like, nice, cool, I should do more, right? The value of my labor, much less than $1,000, could have hired many more people for $1,000 to go paint schools in the inner city. But you see, as human beings, we put a premium on time because it is an equal commodity and it is a non-redeemable commodity. You spend money, you make money. You spend time, you'll never get it back. Some of you are sitting in this room right now saying, I will never get this time back. I got nothing for you. So we put a premium on people who give us their time and energy. A leader who says to you, I'll pay for something for you, is not a leader. A leader who comes and sits down next to you and says, how can I help you, is a leader. I was talking to some oil executives, and they were trying to convince me that they really care about how fulfilled and how happy their employees are at work, to which I said, no, you don't. And they said, no, we do. And I said, no, you don't. And they said, yeah, we do. You see how this went. And I said, I bet you hired some high-priced consultancy to come and do a web survey about whether people like their jobs or not. And they said, well, we didn't hire a consultancy. I said, okay, so it's kind of like sending your son an email, right? Dear son, your mother and I care that you feel like a valuable part of this family. Please tell us candidly what we can do better so that you feel like you belong here because we really love you. Love, Dad. Or you go into his room, you sit on his bed, and you say, hey, son, your mom and I really care that you feel like a valuable member of this family. Please tell us candidly what we can do better because we want you to feel like you belong and we really love you. Same words, same intention, same desire. The difference is one you gave time and energy and the other one you didn't. This is the problem with email. It's too easy. It's too easy. There's no time and energy expended. It's too easy. Don't feel anything. If I come to your house for dinner and you make me a lovely dinner, the next day I send you a very nice thank you email, what a wonderful host you are. Or 3 days later, you receive a handwritten note from me with the exact same words that were written in the email. Which one makes you feel better? Handwritten note. The sentiment was the same, the words were the same. The difference is one took a little more time and a little more energy. Leaders are the ones who give us their time and give us their energy, not the ones who give us their money. It doesn't count, it doesn't work, just biologically doesn't work. This is how you get oxytocin, doing nice things for people that require that you sacrifice a little bit of time, a little bit of energy, something you will never get back. And if you expect something in return, then you weren't really giving in the first place. You take someone out for dinner because you want them to hire you, you're not really taking them out for dinner. You want something in return. It's just a protracted transaction. It's not relationship building. It's nonsense. I was walking down the streets of New York, true story, and the guy in front of me, his backpack opened and a bunch of paper spilled out on the street. Didn't think much of it. I bent down, gathered the papers up, handed them back to him, and pointed out that his bag had opened. I did a small act of generosity for somebody. I got a small burst of oxytocin. I felt good. Also, the person on the receiving end of the act of generosity feels good. They get a shot of oxytocin. He felt good. He says thanks. I get to the end of the block, and I'm standing waiting to cross the street. And a guy who also happens to be standing waiting to cross the street turns around, true story, turns around and says to me, I saw what you did back there. That was really cool. As it turns out, witnessing acts of human generosity release oxytocin. Remember, our bodies are trying to get us to repeat behaviors that are in our best interest, and it's making us feel good when we see or do acts of human generosity so that we will do them. In fact, the more oxytocin you have in your body, the more generous you actually become. In other words, the more you do, the more you want to do. It gets better than that. Lots of oxytocin in your body inhibits addiction. It makes it very difficult to get addicted to something when you have lots of oxytocin in your body. It actually inhibits addiction. It boosts your immune system. It makes you healthier. That's why happy people live longer. It's why couples live longer. Oxytocin, it actually is good for us. It increases our ability to solve problems. It increases our creativity. It's really good for us, and it's not addictive. It just feels great. It takes time to build up, though. You know, if I went on a date with a girl the other day, it was a first date, we totally got along great, we're going to get married. Why are you laughing? That's my social life. The reason you laugh is because you inherently know that I cannot form a bond of trust strong enough to get married in 7 days. You know that. Why don't you go on a couple more dates? Right? Inherently you know that. Right? But if I told you that I've been dating somebody for 7 years and we're not married yet, what do you say? What's wrong? In other words, we know that that bond of trust takes more than 7 days and less than 7 years. Don't know how long it takes, though. So when you start a new job and you're really excited to work there and they're really excited to have you, don't quite feel like you belong. You don't quite feel like you're trusted yet, right? Even though you were really excited and they're really excited, it takes time. And you have to do little acts of generosity and make little sacrifices, do little things for people. Not big risks, small risks. It's like dating. You know, you don't start by buying them a diamond. You start by taking them for lunch, buying them a drink, you know? Little bits. Then they take you out, or you take them out again. You do something a little bigger. Then you do that in a movie. Then they come over, and then you buy them flowers, and then you say, I love you. And one day you wake up in the morning, it's like you press this belief button. You just, I'm in love. I don't know when it happened. It just clicks, and you feel like you belong. Same thing at work. Same thing at work. It just clicks, and you feel like you belong because you got enough oxytocin built up in your system. We don't allow this to happen. We're too busy sending emails. We're too busy sending emails. The next time you want to tell somebody something, email is fantastic for the exchange of information, right? It's fantastic. Here's the report you wanted. The meeting's at 4 o'clock. Fantastic. What did you think of my idea? Do not reply on an email. That's an emotional question. Email is a rational tool. You get up from your desk. You walk the 30 feet. And you say, wanted to tell you what I thought of your idea. And I promise you, not only will that information be better received, but you will start to create relationship because oxytocin starts to get released. If you can't get up and walk 30 feet, pick up the telephone. I've done it. It's an amazing thing. You pick up the phone and you go, hey. They're like, hey, what's the matter? They're like, no, I'm just replying to your email. Wanted to tell you what I thought. What? And people who tell me, but I need a paper trail. Have the conversation, hang up and say, just to confirm what we talked about, boom, there's your paper trail. The reason we get so many emails is because we reply to them all. And 12 emails are sent, and then somebody misunderstands something, and somebody gets angry, and then you have to pick up the phone and deal with it anyway. Do it at the beginning. Quicker, easier, better. Biology. Give your time and give your energy. And this is why leadership is really difficult, because you can't give it to everyone because you don't have enough to give to everyone. You just can't. You have to make sure that you can trust others, to trust others, to trust others, to trust others. And this is what happens in this circle of belonging, in the circle of safety. This is what effective bureaucracy is, which is, as the CEO, as the leader, or whatever your job is, you have one responsibility and one responsibility only, which is to make sure the people you know that you have physical contact with, you know their names, are confident and feel looked after, and encourage them to do the same for the ones who work beneath them, who work beneath them, who work beneath them. And when this group of people really feel safe, then they will invite in the customer to also feel safe. They will talk to these people as if they are human. I actually flew on an airline recently, and I was appalled at how I was treated. It was disgusting. It was like cattle, right? And I said something. I said, why do you treat people like cattle? And she literally said to me, I'm sorry, sir, I have to do it or I'll lose my job. What did she tell me? My organization that I work for doesn't make me feel safe. I don't feel like I belong. So I'm going to treat you like dirt to protect myself. As opposed to somebody who feels safe and says, sir, I will do everything in my power to make sure that you feel happy and good because I'm not worried. That's called a highly effective organization. There's one more chemical I haven't told you about. The big C. Cortisol. Cortisol is the feeling of stress and the feeling of anxiety. We share these chemicals with all the social mammals. And so when you see a herd of gazelle, you've all seen the documentary on Discovery or whatever, right? You see a herd of gazelle grazing, and one of them thinks they hear a rustle in the grass, and they go, head, right? That's what cortisol does. Cortisol is designed to keep us alive. It is the first stage of fight or flight. It makes us paranoid. It makes all of our senses hyper-attuned to look for danger. It injects glucose into our muscles to make us stiff and ready to go in case we need to fight or flight. It increases our heart rate like crazy, right? And it makes us start looking. It makes us paranoid to find the danger. And the cool thing about cortisol when you work in a social environment is if other people sense that you're nervous, they get nervous. So all the other gazelle go, they didn't hear anything. They just saw Steve over there get really freaked out. And so they got all freaked out. And now they all start looking for the danger. Good system. And one of them, who didn't even hear the initial rustle in the grass, sees the lion, runs, they all run, they all live another day. Good system. So that when we go to work and somebody says, I think there's going to be layoffs, all of us are like, what do you mean? Wait, there's going to be, we're all paranoid now. We're all freaked. I shouldn't have talked in that meeting. We start to get crazy. We start to get paranoid. Our hearts start to race. That's what cortisol does. It's trying to keep us alive. You wake up in the middle of the night, you hear a bump in the middle of the night. What's the first thing you do? You wake the person next to you. And then what do? They go, and if there's nothing there, you go and trust your eyes, right? You go looking for it. We're visual animals, right? If there's nothing there, you go like this. Cortisol leaves our body, and we relax, and our heart rate goes back down. Cortisol, to get all of that extra energy, to make us paranoid, to make us self-interested, it needs to shut down non-essential systems because it has to get it from somewhere, right? So it shuts off things like growth. You don't need your fingernails to grow at that moment. It shuts it off. The other thing it shuts off is our immune system. Don't need it in that moment. The problem is you're not supposed to have cortisol in your system all the time. You're supposed to have it in and then gone. And when we go to work in a place that doesn't make us feel like we belong, that doesn't make us feel safe when we're at work, guess what? We got little bits of cortisol dripping in our body. Drip, 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 drip. Makes us paranoid. Drip. I know my boss hates me. I know he hates me. He hates all my ideas. I know it. Drip, drip. It makes us self-interested. One of the things cortisol does, it inhibits the release of oxytocin. Biologically, if you work in a high-stress environment where you don't feel safe, you are biologically less empathetic and less generous. We don't care about each other because we're too busy trying to protect ourselves. Drip, drip, drip. Our immune systems are now compromised. Drip, drip, drip. We live in a country with some of the best medical education in the world, some of the best medical systems in the world, some of the best doctors in the world, some of the best hospitals in the world, some of the best medicines in the world. Please explain to me why diabetes is on the rise, heart disease is on the rise, some cancers are on the rise. It ain't partially hydrogenated oils. Our jobs are killing us. And the people who are responsible are the leaders. And we also know that parents who come home stressed out, their kids learn that this is what work is. That work is something that makes you short-tempered and unhappy. And so they expect it as they grow older. Worse, we know that parents who come home upset and angry, it has such a negative impact on their children that there's some studies that show that they might actually become bullies because of their unhappy parents who hate their jobs and have excessive amounts of stress. Our companies are literally killing us. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Leadership is not a rank. Leadership is not a position. Leadership is a decision. Leadership is a choice. It has nothing to do with your position in the organization. If you decide to look after the person to the left of you and look after the person to the right of you, you have become a leader. You've seen the movie 300, right? The Spartans, the greatest fighting force of all time. You want to know one of the things that made the Spartans great? Wasn't their muscles, wasn't their spears. It was their shields. They stood shield to shield, and the phalanx was strong because those shields were big. And they were told when they were young children, you either bring your shield home or you come home on your shield. The punishment for losing your shield was tremendous in battle. Because if you lost your shield, that means you cannot protect the person to the left of you and the person to the right of you, and you have destroyed the phalanx. It's the shield that matters, not the spear. Not the spear. It's your willingness to sacrifice yourself, not your life, maybe your credit, maybe your little time, maybe a little energy, maybe your time, maybe getting up from your desk and talking to somebody for 30 minutes instead of sending a 3-minute email. It's your willingness to sacrifice for someone, to hold that shield up so that they feel safe, that makes you a leader. And you want to know how you beat a dopamine addiction? If you're worried that you're addicted to performance and all those dopamine things? Alcoholics Anonymous has been highly effective for decades, 80-something years. We all know the first step of the 12 steps. We joke about it, right? Admit you have a problem. Do you know the 12th step? Don't say, it's supposed to be anonymous. I'll tell you what the 12th step is. Alcoholics Anonymous knows that if you master all 11 steps, but not the 12th, you will drink again. If you master the 12th step, you will beat the disease. What's the 12th step? The 12th step is the commitment to help another alcoholic. Service. Service to another. Oxytocin wins. Serotonin wins. The more we look after each other, the safer we feel, the more we feel like we belong, and the more we will work together to confront the dangers outside. Do this for others, and others will become Johnny Bravo. Thanks very much. I have 5 little rules that you can follow as you find your spark and bring your spark to life. The first is to go after the things that you want. Let me tell you a story. So a friend of mine and I, we went for a run in Central Park. The Roadrunners organization, on the weekends, they host races. And it's very common at the end of the race, they'll have a sponsor who will give away something, apples or bagels or something. And on this particular day, when we got to the end of the run, there were some free bagels. And they had picnic tables set up, and on one side was a group of volunteers. On the table were boxes of bagels, and on the other side was a long line of runners waiting to get their free bagel. So I said to my friend, let's get a bagel. And he looked at me and said, the line's too long. And I said, free bagel. And he said, I don't want to wait in line. And I was like, free bagel. And he says, nah, it's too long. And that's when I realized that there's 2 ways to see the world. Some people see the thing that they want, and some people see the thing that prevents them from getting the thing that they want. I could only see the bagels. He could only see the line. And so I walked up to the line. I leaned in between 2 people, put my hand in the box, and pulled out 2 bagels. And no one got mad at me. Because the rule is, you can go after whatever you want. You just cannot deny anyone else to go after whatever they want. Now, I had to sacrifice choice. I didn't get to choose which bagel I got. I got whatever I pulled out, but I didn't have to wait in line. So the point is you don't have to wait in line. You don't have to do it the way everybody else has done it. You can do it your way. You can break the rules. You just can't get in the way of somebody else getting what they want. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2. I like this one. In the 18th century, there was something that spread across Europe and eventually made its way to America called puerperal fever, also known as the Black Death of childbed. Basically what was happening is women were giving birth and they would die within 48 hours after giving birth. This Black Death of childbirth was the ravage of Europe, and it got worse and worse and worse over the course of over a century. In some hospitals, it was as high as 70% of women who gave birth who would die as a result of giving birth. But this was the Renaissance. This was the time of empirical data and science, and we had thrown away things like tradition and mysticism. These were men of science, these were doctors. And these doctors and men of science wanted to study and try and find the reason for this Black Death of childbed, and so they got to work studying, and they would study the corpses of the women who had died. And in the morning they would conduct autopsies, and then in the afternoon they would go and deliver babies and finish their rounds. And it wasn't until somewhere in the mid-1800s that Dr. Oliver Wendell Holmes, father of Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, realized that all of these doctors who were conducting autopsies in the morning weren't washing their hands before they delivered babies in the afternoon. And he pointed it out and said, guys, you're the problem. And they ignored him and called him crazy for 30 years. until finally somebody realized that if they simply washed their hands, it would go away. And that's exactly what happened. When they started sterilizing their instruments and washing their hands, the Black Death of childbed disappeared. My point is, the lesson here is, sometimes you're the problem. We've seen this happen all too recently with our new men of science and empirical studiers, and these men of finance who are smarter than the rest of us until the thing collapsed. And they blamed everything else except themselves. And my point is take accountability for your actions. You can take all the credit in the world for the things that you do right, as long as you also take responsibility for the things you do wrong. It must be a balanced equation. You don't get it one way and not the other. You get to take credit when you also take accountability. That's lesson 2. Lesson 3, take care of each other. The United States Navy SEALs are perhaps the most elite warriors in the world. And one of the SEALs was asked, who makes it through the selection process? Who is able to become a SEAL? And his answer was, I can't tell you the kind of person that becomes a SEAL. I can't tell you the kind of person that makes it through BUD/S. But I can tell you the kind of people who don't become SEALs. He says the guys that show up with huge, bulging muscles, covered in tattoos, who want to prove to the world how tough they are, none of them make it through. He said the preening leaders who like to delegate all their responsibility and never do anything themselves, none of them make it through. He said the star college athletes who've never really been tested to the core of their being, none of them make it through. He says some of the guys that make it through are skinny, scrawny. He said some of the guys that make it through, you will see them shivering out of fear. He says, however, all the guys that make it through, when they find themselves physically spent, emotionally spent, when they have nothing left to give physically or emotionally, somehow, some way, they are able to find the energy to dig down deep inside themselves, to find the energy to help the guy next to them. They become SEALs, he said. You want to be an elite warrior. It's not about how tough you are. It's not about how smart you are. It's not about how fast you are. If you want to be an elite warrior, you better get really, really good at helping the person to the left of you and helping the person to the right of you. Because that's how people advance in the world. The world is too dangerous and the world is too difficult for you to think that you can do these things alone. If you find your spark, I commend you. Now, who are you going to ask for help, and when are you going to accept help when it's offered? Learn that skill. Learn by practicing helping each other. It'll be the single most valuable thing you ever learn in your entire life. To accept help when it's offered and to ask for it when you know that you can't do it. The amazing thing is, when you learn to ask for help, you'll discover that there are people all around you who've always wanted to help you. They just didn't think you needed it because you kept pretending that you had everything under control. And the minute you say, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm stuck, I'm scared, I don't think I can do this, you will find that lots of people who love you will rush in and take care of you. But that'll only happen if you learn to take care of them first. Lesson 4. Nelson Mandela is a particularly special case study in the leadership world because he is universally regarded as a great leader. You can take other personalities, and depending on the nation you go to, we have different opinions about other personalities. But Nelson Mandela across the world is universally regarded as a great leader. He was actually the son of a tribal chief. And he was asked one day, how did you learn to be a great leader? And he responded that he would go with his father to tribal meetings. And he remembers 2 things when his father would meet with other elders. 1, they would always sit in a circle. And 2, his father was always the last to speak. You will be told your whole life that you need to learn to listen. I would say that you need to learn to be the last to speak. I see it in boardrooms every day of the week. Even people who consider themselves good leaders, who may actually be decent leaders, will walk into a room and say, here's the problem, here's what I think, but I'm interested in your opinion, let's go around the room. It's too late. The skill to hold your opinions to yourself until everyone has spoken does 2 things. 1, it gives everybody else the feeling that they have been heard. It gives everyone else the ability to feel that they have contributed. And 2, you get the benefit of hearing what everybody else has to think before you render your opinion. The skill is really to keep your opinions to yourself. If you agree with somebody, don't nod yes. If you disagree with somebody, don't nod no. Simply sit there, take it all in, and the only thing you're allowed to do is ask questions so that you can understand what they mean and why they have the opinion that they have. You must understand from where they are speaking, why they have the opinion they have, not just what they are saying. And at the end, you will get your turn. It sounds easy, it's not. Practice being the last to speak. That's what Nelson Mandela did. Number 5. This is Monty Python. 1, 2, 5, 3. For all the other nerds in the audience. There's one. Number 5. My favorite one of all. True story. There was a former Undersecretary of Defense who was invited to give a speech at a large conference, about 1,000 people. And he was standing on the stage with his cup of coffee and a styrofoam cup, giving his prepared remarks with his PowerPoint behind him. And he took a sip of his coffee and he smiled and he looked down at the coffee. And then he went off script. And he said, last year I spoke at this exact same conference. Last year I was still the undersecretary. And when I spoke here last year, they flew me here business class. And when I arrived at the airport, there was somebody waiting for me to take me to my hotel. And they took me to my hotel and they had already checked me in and they just took me up to my room. And the next morning I came downstairs and there was someone waiting in the lobby to greet me and they drove me to this here same venue. They took me through the back entrance and took me into the green room and handed me a cup of coffee in a beautiful ceramic cup. He says, I'm no longer the undersecretary. I flew here coach. I took a taxi to my hotel and I checked myself in. When I came down the lobby this morning, I took another taxi to this venue. I came in the front door and found my way backstage, and when I asked someone, do you have any coffee? He pointed to the coffee machine in the corner, and I poured myself a cup of coffee into this here styrofoam cup. He says the lesson is, the ceramic cup was never meant for me. It was meant for the position I held. I deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember this. As you gain fame, as you gain fortune, as you gain position and seniority, people will treat you better. They will hold doors open for you. They will get you a cup of tea and coffee without you even asking. They will call you sir and ma'am, and they will give you stuff. None of that stuff is meant for you. That stuff is meant for the position you hold. It is meant for the level that you have achieved of leader or success or whatever you want to call it. But you will always deserve a styrofoam cup. Remember that. Remember that lesson of humility and gratitude. You can accept all the free stuff. You can accept all the perks. Absolutely, you can enjoy them. But just be grateful for them and know that they're not for you. I remember getting off the Acela. I took the Acela from New York to Washington, D.C. And I got off the train like everybody else. And I was walking down the platform like everyone else. And I walked past General Norty Schwartz, who used to be the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force, the head of the Air Force. And here I did, see a guy in a suit schlepping his own suitcase down the platform just like me. And just a couple months ago, he was flying on private jets and he had an entourage and other people carried his luggage. But he no longer held the position, and so now he got to drag his own suitcase. And never did it sort of remind me more that none of us deserve the perks that we get. We all deserve a styrofoam cup. I get invited to speak to a lot of remarkable and fascinating audiences who are doing remarkable things, but they do what they do and I do what I do. And so it's particularly special for me to talk to an audience where I'm one of you and you're one of me. I feel at home here. And I can't tell you how wonderful everybody has been as I've been walking around, so thank you. This one's very special for me. The concept of entrepreneurship is also interesting to me. I think there's a lot of people who like to say, I'm an entrepreneur, but most don't really know what it means. An entrepreneur sees what they want and they set out to get it. A non-entrepreneur sees the things that prevent them from getting what they want. And that's the difference. That's the difference. At the end of the day, an entrepreneur is a problem solver. They are not turned off by long lines. They are not turned off by things that will get in the way. They are not turned off by things that will make things difficult. They see what they want and they find a way to get it. They don't do it in a way that hurts anybody. They don't do it in a way that denies anybody else their desire to get what they want. They don't judge others for doing it the other way. They might make them uncomfortable, but they don't judge them. But they get what they want, but first, they have to know what they want. And the question is, what do you want? You want to build a business? You need employees. If you have employees, you have people who are going to help your business. Think about it. At the end of the day, you're asking them to help build your dream. You're asking them to come on board and help you get what you want. Even if they're not employees, they're just friends, supporters. Why should they help you? This is what it means to be a leader. So let's define a leader. What is a leader? A leader is just that. It's one who leads. But a leader, to be a leader, must have followers. You're not a leader unless there are those who volunteer to follow you. You cannot force someone to follow you. They have to choose to follow you. Whether they're customers or employees, friends, investors, supporters, they choose, they volunteer to help you get what you want. Why should they? Why should they bother? What leaders do is they inspire people to be a part of what they're doing. They inspire people to follow in the direction that they're going. At the end of the day, there are only two ways to influence human behavior. You can either manipulate it or you can inspire it. Those are your options. We all know how manipulation works. Manipulation in business, right? You drop your price low enough, people will do business with you. This is the concept behind a sale. Things are priced to move. It works. It's manipulative. Promotions, 2 for 1, free toy inside. Or if you're in the B2B space, we call it value added. Same idea. It's a promotion. It's giving stuff away for free to reduce someone's risk so they'll choose you over the competition. We see manipulation a lot in marketing. Fear, wonderful manipulator. Any parents in the audience, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Fear is a wonderful manipulator. You can get people to do all kinds of things. We're often told you have to be aspirational. Yes, it's good to be positive, but it's still a manipulation. I like to joke that you can get people to join the gym with an aspirational message, but to get them to go 3 days a week, that requires a little bit of inspiration. Or what a lot of organizations like to call innovation. It's really novelty, right? Because real innovation changes the course of industries, if not society. The fax machine, the microwave, the light bulb, iTunes, that's real innovation. Adding a camera to your cell phone, wonderful feature, not an innovation. It is stressful to be a consumer these days. It is stressful to try to decide what to buy when you are bombarded day after day with manipulation from all kinds of organizations. Which TV should I buy? Which cell phone company should I go with? Which IT solution should I get for my office? It's called stress. It's stressful to be a seller as well, however. In the face of bombardment of manipulation and manipulation, that's the marketplace. How do you get your message to stand out? How do you get your message heard? Why should anyone listen to you? This is the world we live in today. It's called stress. Again, I cannot dispute that every one of those manipulations work. They do. That's why companies use them. The problem is, none of them breed loyalty. There's an alternative. It's called inspiration. And there are a few leaders and a few organizations that rely vastly more on inspiration than manipulation. I'll talk about some of the big ones. We know who they are. Apple Computers, Southwest Airlines, Harley-Davidson, Virgin. Every single one of these organizations, these leaders, those with the ability to inspire, they have the most loyal employees. They have the most loyal customers. They can charge a premium if they want to. They're more profitable. They're more innovative, my definition. And most importantly, they can sustain all these things for the long term. What I discovered is that regardless of their size and regardless of their industry, every single one of these organizations with the capacity to inspire, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was write it down, and it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Imagine, if you will, 3 concentric circles, a bullseye. In the middle is the word why, in the center ring is the word how, and the outside ring is the word what. It's this little idea that distinguishes those with the capacity to inspire versus everyone else. Let me define the terms really quickly, starting from the outside in. Every single organization on the planet knows what they do. These are the products you sell or the services you offer. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your USP or your proprietary process. It's the things that you think make you special or different or better than your competition. But very, very few people and very, very few organizations can clearly state why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make money. That's a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief? Why does your company exist? Why did you get out of bed this morning? And why should anyone care? As a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. We tell people what we do, we tell them how we're different or how we're better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, support. But not the inspired leaders, not the inspired organizations. Regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, every single one of them thinks, acts, and communicates from the inside out. They all start with why. Let me give you an example. I use Apple a lot because they're easy to understand and we all get it. If Apple were like everyone else, a piece of marketing from them, for example, would sound like this. They would say what they do. We make great computers. How do they do it? They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? That's normal. That's how most organizations talk to us. Here's our new car. It's got tinted windows, get great gas mileage, leather seats. Choose us. Here's our law firm. Our lawyers went to all the best schools. We won all of our cases. Choose us. But not the inspired leaders, not Apple. They start with why. Here's how they actually communicate. Everything we do, they say, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different. Totally different. No trickery, no manipulations, no celebrity endorsements. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it starts to show us is that it's not what you do that matters, it's why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply serves as the tangible proof of what you believe. This is the reason why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. We're perfectly comfortable with the idea that Apple makes MP3 players and phones and DVRs. Newsflash. Apple is just a company, that's all they are. It's a corporate structure. They have some good products and some bad ones. All of their competitors have equal and open access to the same resources, the same agencies, the same consultants, the same media, the same talent. It is a zero-sum game. Every single one of their competitors is equally qualified to make every product that Apple makes. And yet, how is it that this one company has an unbalanced amount of influence, an unbalanced ability to innovate, an unbalanced amount of profitability, an unbalanced amount of loyalty amongst their customers and in their employees?
The difference is they haven't defined themselves by what they do, they've defined themselves by why they do it, and what they do simply serves as the tangible proof of what they believe. Dell is a good company that makes good products and is every little bit qualified to make every product that Apple makes. A few years ago, they came out with PDAs and MP3 players, and nobody bought one. Why would we buy an MP3 player from a computer company? It doesn't make sense. But we do it every day. The difference is Dell has defined themselves by what they do, and Apple has defined themselves by why they exist. For this little idea to work, you have to have three things. One, you have to know why you do what you do. If you don't know why you do what you do, how will anyone else? Two, you have to have discipline of how. You have to hold yourself and your people accountable to your values and your guiding principles. And thirdly, you have to have consistency of what? Everything you say and everything you do, everything must prove what you believe. At the end of the day, a why is just a belief. That's all it is. Hows are the actions we take to realize that belief, and what's are the results of those actions, the things we say, the things we do, our products and services and marketing, etc. And if what you say and what you do doesn't show what you believe, then no one will know what you believe. This is the concept behind authenticity. I'm tired and bored of people standing on stages telling us all we have to be authentic. How do you implement authenticity? If you would, when you go back to your office, a little more authenticity in everything you do. Appreciate it. Thanks. No clue. What authenticity means is that the things you say and the things you do, you actually believe. This is caveman stuff. The reason the human race is so successful is not because we're the strongest. It's not even because we're the smartest. It's because we're social animals. It's because we have the ability to form cultures and communities. What's a culture? What's a community? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. What's a company? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. Our need to be amongst people who believe what we believe, is essential. Our survival depends on it. We cannot survive by ourselves out in the wilderness. It is our communities that protect us and look after us and are the reason the human race succeeds. When you are surrounded by people who believe what you believe, something remarkable happens. Trust emerges. Make no mistake of it, trust is a feeling. It is a human experience. Simply doing everything you promise you're going to do does not mean people will trust you. It just means you're responsible. We all have friends who are total screw-ups, and yet we still trust them. Trust is a feeling, and it comes from that common set of values and beliefs. And when you are surrounded by people who trust you and you trust them, you're more likely to take a risk, you're more likely to explore, you're more likely to innovate, you're more likely to leave the cave to go hunting saber-toothed tigers with the confidence that those in your community will look after your stuff and protect your children while you're gone. Your survival depends on your ability to form trust, and trust can only be formed when you're surrounded by people who believe what you believe, and you can only be surrounded by people who believe what you believe if you know why you do what you do. How many of you either love your Macintosh computer or know somebody who loves their Macintosh computer? Okay, good bunch of you. You can always tell people who love their Macs because when you try and convince them that they actually bought substandard computers, they start foaming at the mouth. Rationally speaking, Apples are substandard. They are. They're at least 25% more expensive, sometimes double the price of their PC counterparts. There's less software, there's fewer peripherals, and I know because I switched to a Mac, they are absolutely slower than PCs. Substandard. And yet people who buy them don't even compare to the competition. They don't do market research and try and figure out which is the best computer. They've decided they're only going to get a Mac. And they buy them over and over and over again. And there are young kids living on cup of noodles because they can't afford anything more, and yet it's totally okay to spend $2,000 on a laptop. This doesn't make sense. There's something deeper. There's something deeper happening here. Apple stands for something. The people who are drawn to Apple, the people who believe in the same things that Apple believes, do so not because the computer is rationally better, it's because it becomes a symbol, one of the things that they do that reflects their own beliefs. Every decision we make in our lives as individuals or organizations is a piece of communication. It tells the outside world something about who we are. It's the way we get the word out. There are people who walk around with Harley Davidson logos on their bodies. It's a corporate logo. Some of them don't even own the product. But it's no longer a logo. Because Harley is so clear in why they do what they do and what they believe, and they're so disciplined in how they do it, and they're so consistent in what they do, what ends up happening is everything they say and everything they do, their products, their logos become symbols. Symbols of a set of values and beliefs. And the person who puts that Harley logo there, it's nothing to do with the motorcycle. They're telling you something about who they are. This is the reason why people with Apple laptops love opening their laptops on airports. They want everybody to see. And you'll never see somebody with an Apple laptop put a big tiger print sticker over the top of their computer. It'll never happen. Take a PC, we don't care what computer you're using, and you put stickers all over it, make it pretty. Never. It's a piece of communication. The clearer you are about what you believe, the more disciplined you are about how you do things, and the more consistent you are in what you do, everything you say and everything you do then becomes a symbol for that set of values and beliefs. It's biology. It's biology. If you look at a cross-section of the human brain looking from the top down, the human brain evolved into 3 major areas that corresponds with this little idea. The outside area, the what level, is our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, called our neocortex. The neocortex is responsible for all of our rational and analytical thought and language. The middle 2 sections, why and how, make up our limbic brains. Our limbic brains are responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all human behavior, all decision-making, and it has no capacity for language. In other words, you can't ask your customers, why do you do business with us? They can't tell you. The part of the brain that controls behavior does not control language. And so we rationalize price, service, quality, features, right? But if you invest all your money in price, service, quality, and features, how come you don't win all the customers? And how come sometimes when you're not the best price, service, quality, or features, you still have loyal customers? There's something deeper going on. This is the reason when you ask those people who love their Macs, why do you love your Mac? They can't tell you. Well, you see, I'm the kind of person who likes to challenge the status quo. And so it's very important for me to surround myself with the people and the products and the brands that prove to the outside world who I believe I am. Biologically, that's what happened. But it happened in the part of the brain that controls feelings, but not language, the part of the brain that controls decision-making. And so they rationalize. It's the user interface. It's the simplicity. It's the design. I'm a creative person, whatever that means. It's the same for us. It's the same for in other circumstances. Why do you love your husband? Why do you love your wife? That's a difficult question. Why do you love your wife? I don't know. That's usually where most people start, right? And then they start rationalizing. She's fun. She's always been there for me. I can count on her. Sounds like a golden retriever. And those aren't necessarily the conditions for marriage. My sister says of my brother-in-law, I love this. It's supposed to be a compliment. My sister says of my brother-in-law, I never imagined I'd marry a guy like him. What she's saying is when I was younger and I made a checklist of all the things that I wanted in my future husband, what, he has none of them. But I love him. And I want to have children with him. And I want to spend the rest of my life with him. It's not rational. We just think it's rational. And again, the part of the brain that controls behavior and decision-making and feelings doesn't control language. This is where gut decisions come from. This is why we say, I don't know, it just felt right. Why do we use the verb to feel to describe a decision? It's because the part of the brain that controls feelings controls decision-making. That's why. There is no part of your stomach that controls decision-making. And it didn't happen in your blood, and it's not in your bones, and you're not following your heart. We ascribe it to all different parts of the body because we can't find the words. It just feels right. And we all know that those are higher quality decisions anyway. When all you can give are the facts and figures as to why you should or shouldn't do something, the highest level of confidence you can give is, I think this is the right decision. That would be biologically accurate. But we all know there are decisions we make in our lives that I know the facts and figures say that we should do that. It just doesn't feel right, though. And you ask the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, what's your secret? They all say the same thing: trusted my gut. Trusted my gut. And when things didn't go well, I knew I should have trusted my gut. Problem is, it's not scalable. Not scalable. We all have the innate ability to find people who believe what we believe. Our survival depends on it. We are human animals. We know how to do this. If I ask you to go out in the street and find all the people who believe what you believe, you know exactly what to do. You're going to go up to somebody and you're going to strike up a conversation. Maybe you have good chemistry, right? Maybe you have to talk to them a little longer. And you'll get a feeling for them, and it'll either be right or wrong, right? It's called dating. It's called making friends. It's called interviewing. We know how to do this. We know how to do this. It's not scalable. But if I ask you to go out on the street and find all the people wearing red hats, easy. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. Instantaneously, you can find the people who believe what you believe because they're putting out symbols of their own beliefs. You people who love your Apple computers, don't lie to me. I know when you're walking through the airport and you see some 16-year-old sitting on the floor, on her Mac laptop, you walk past and you go, hey. Why'd you do that? Leave her alone. Some stranger just said hi to me. Tweet. It's because when you see that symbol, that apple, that glowing apple, you're like, oh. How many of you are from the Las Vegas area? Anybody? A couple of you. Okay, are you friends with everybody from Las Vegas? Why not? But when you go to Texas and somebody says, I'm from Las Vegas, you're like, hey, I'm from Las Vegas. And you're best friends. And when you're in France and you're on vacation and you happen to hear an American accent, and you go, hey, where are you from? We're from Texas. We're from Las Vegas. And you're best friends. And the reason is because the most basic human desire on the planet is to feel like we belong. Our survival depends on it. And when we are in an environment where we know we don't belong, we seek out anyone who may have some of the same values and beliefs that we have so we can form trust. We can rely on each other. Watch each other's backs. Simply because we share the same values and beliefs. And as you get closer and closer and closer, you want to find those people who believe what you believe. Knowing what you believe means that you can look for the symbols. That Apple logo says something. That Harley Davidson logo says something. And you're either drawn to it or repelled by it. This is good. Leadership is when you have the ability to stand on the street corner and put on your own red hat and simply stand there and go, I got a red hat. I got a red hat. I got a red hat. And all the other people walking past, even though they can't see their own red hats, even though they don't know their why, they're eerily drawn to you. They're eerily drawn to you. There's an inextricable link between leadership and communication. Those who lead are the ones who can clearly communicate what they believe, and those who can clearly communicate what they believe are the ones who lead. And the reason is simple. It's because when you talk about what you believe, and you put your beliefs and your values in clear words or symbols, consistent enough, authentic enough that I know that everything you say and do represents what you believe, I will be drawn to you for myself, for my own survival. Doing business with you, working for you, being your friend says something about who I am. The goal is not to do business with everybody who needs what you have. The goal is to do business with people who believe what you believe. People who believe what you believe will work for you with blood and sweat and tears. People who don't believe what you believe work for your money. The same is true for customers. Those who believe what you believe will go out of their way to do business with you. Those who don't believe what you believe just want it cheaper. There's a huge difference between repeat business and loyalty. Repeat business means I'm willing to do business with you over and over and over again. Loyalty means I'm willing to turn down a better product at a better price, maybe even suffer inconvenience to continue to do business with you. The ones who you just happen to meet some price standard, you happen to meet some rational objectives that they're looking for, they'll do business with you anyway if you happen to meet them. Why would you ever focus on trying to appease them? They come and go. It's the loyal ones, the people who believe what you believe, the ones who stick with you through thick and thin because doing business with you says more about them than it does about you. Those are the ones that matter most. And the reason is simple. It's because of something called the law of diffusion of innovations. The bell curve. If you don't know the law of diffusion, you definitely know the terminology. If you look at the bell, what it says is the first 2.5% of our population are our innovators. The next 13.5% of our population are our early adopters. The next 34% are our early majority. The next 34% are our late majority. And the last 16% at the end of the bell are our laggards. The only reason the laggards buy touch-tone phones is because you can't buy rotary phones anymore. We all fit at various times for various reasons across this scale. What the law of diffusion tells us is that early adopter and innovator population, the left side of the bell, right? The early adopter and innovator side of the population, they're very comfortable trusting their guts. They're very comfortable making intuitive decisions. And they're willing to pay premiums and suffer inconvenience to be a part of something that reflects their beliefs. These are the people that stood in line for 6 hours to buy iPhones when they first came out, even though you could just walk into the store the following week and just buy one off the shelf. These are the people who spent $40,000 or $50,000 on flat-screen TVs when they first came out, even though the technology was substandard. It had nothing to do with the technology. It had to do with them. They wanted to be first. People who bought iPhone 4s, why couldn't they just keep their phone in their pocket? When the phone rings, answer the phone, and when they're off the phone, put it away? No. I got one. Did you get one? You didn't get one? I got one. They have to show you. The reason they have to show you is because they're telling you something about who they are. And other people who got one first, then they're like, oh, you got one too? Me too. Look, isn't it cool? Look. You both have one. Why do you have to compare? It's because that common set of values and beliefs. You found somebody like you. This is good. This is good. Right? That's that early adopter and innovator population. They're willing to pay a premium or suffer inconvenience to be a part of something that reflects their beliefs. Now, the rest of the world, the majority, is absolutely more cynical and more practical. Absolutely. They absolutely care more about things like price and quality and service and features. Absolutely. The problem is, according to the law of diffusion, you cannot have mass market success or mass market acceptance for an idea until you've achieved 15 to 18% market penetration. That is the tipping point. And the reason is because the early majority, that first 34%, will not try something until someone else has tried it first. This is the reason we have to drop our price and offer promotions and offer value added, because we have to reduce their risk to do business with us. The innovator and the early adopters happily pay premiums and suffer inconvenience to do business with you. The goal is to get to that tipping point. It's easy. Law of averages says you can get 10%. I promise you right now, you have 10% who are loyal. How do we describe them? They just get it. Don't know what that means. Get what? What's it? Oh, you know those other guys. That guy. He doesn't get it. That's how we describe them. It's like gut feelings. Get what? How do you find the people who get it before you do business with them? How do you identify the its? How do you find the people wearing the red hats before you waste all your time and energy? You talk about what you believe. Give you two examples, a famous failure and a famous success. First, the famous failure. TiVo. If you ask most companies, why did your product fail or why did your company fail, they usually give you some combination of the same few reasons, right? Undercapitalized, didn't have enough money, that's a big one. Bad market conditions, we had the wrong people, poorly executed. That pretty much explains every failure there is, some combination of those factors. Which means if you have all of those, it means you should be instantaneously successful, right? Okay. So, TiVo. TiVo was introduced into the marketplace about 9 or 10 years ago. From the day it was introduced to this current day, it is the single best quality product on the market. Hands down, undisputed. Its technology is way beyond any other DVR system. The best. Execution, flawless. Venture capital, up the wazoo. Money, no problem. Brilliant engineers on board, they had good people. Market conditions, remarkable. The unaided awareness of TiVo is through the roof. We use TiVo as a verb. my TiVo stuff on my piece of junk cable DVR, right? And if you want to throw in first mover's advantage, throw that in too, because they had that as well. TiVo is a commercial and financial failure. They've never made money. And when their stock went public, it launched at about $40 or $50, very quickly plummeted, and except for a couple of little blips, has never traded above $10. TiVo is a commercial and financial failure. And the reason is because when they launched this brilliant product, they attempted to tell the mass, the majority, what their product does. They said to the majority, we have a product that pauses live TV, skips commercials, memorizes your viewing habits, and records on your behalf without you even asking. And the cynical, practical majority said, I don't need it. I don't like it. I don't believe you. You're scaring me. So they didn't buy one. A few did. A few early adopters did. 10%. To this day, they love their TiVos. But it wasn't enough to make the system tip, you see. Now imagine if TiVo had told that left side, that those early adopters and those innovators, that they had just talked about why the product even exists. Imagine if they have said, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. It pauses live TV, it skips commercials, it memorizes your viewing habits and records on your behalf without you even asking. In this instance, what the product does serves as the tangible proof of why it exists. It is not the reason you use to convince people to do business with you in the first place. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, and what you do serves as the tangible proof of what you believe. Your company is one of the things that you're doing in your life that proves who you are. The more you talk about what you believe, the more you talk about what you actually believe, the more likely you are to attract people who believe what you believe. And they will help you because they want to, because they trust you. Here's another example, my favorite one. In the summer of 1963, 250,000 people showed up on the Mall in Washington to hear Dr. King give his famous I Have a Dream speech. There were no invitations sent out and there's no website to check the date. How do you do that? How many emails did you get just to show up here today? I got 7. Dr. King was not the only man in America who knew what had to change to bring about civil rights in this country. Dr. King didn't have all great ideas. Some of his ideas were bad. He was not the only man who suffered in pre-civil rights America. In fact, he suffered a little less than some because he was off at university. And he wasn't the perfect man. He had his complexities, but we just don't talk about those things. The difference is Dr. King didn't go around telling people what we need to do, what we need to do, what we need to do. He went around and told people, I believe, I believe, I believe. And people who believed what he believed took his cause and they made it their own. And they told people what they believed. And those people who believed what they believed, they took that same cause and they made it their own. And they told people what they believed. And some built structures to get the word out more efficiently. And lo and behold, on the right day, on the right time, 250,000 people showed up to hear him speak. How many of them showed up for him? 0. They showed up for themselves. It's what they believed about this country. It's the country that they wanted to live in. It's the country that they wanted to raise their children in, that inspired them to get on a bus, travel for 8 hours, and stand in the sun in the middle of Washington simply to hear Dr. King speak. Simply coming to the rally was one of the things they did in their lives to prove what they believe. By the way, he gave the I Have a Dream speech, not the I Have a Plan speech. It's not what you do that matters, it's why you do it. You cannot change the world or build a multi-million-dollar or multi-billion-dollar business by yourself. Unscalable, remember? You and your gut, you can do very well, not scalable. The only way to really grow is to find those who believe what you believe and are willing to work with you with blood and sweat and tears to help you get there. Do you know the story of the 2 stone layers? So there's 2 stone layers, right? You go to the first one and say, how do you like your job? He says, yeah, I like my job. I've been working on this wall for as long as I can remember. The stones are heavy. The work is back-breaking. It's monotonous. I stand in the scorching hot sun all day, and I don't even know if I'm going to finish this wall in my lifetime. It's a job. It pays the bills. You go up to the second guy and say, how do you like your job? He says, I love my job. I'm building a cathedral. Sure, I've been building this wall for as long as I can remember. Sure, the stones are heavy and the work is back-breaking and I stand in the scorching hot sun all day and it's monotonous and I don't even know if I'm going to finish this wall in my lifetime, but I'm building a cathedral. What they do is exactly the same. This guy might even be a champion stone layer. The only difference is that only one of them knows why he shows up to work every day. And the guy who knows why does not see himself as any more or less important than the architect or the guy doing the stained glass windows or the landscaper. They are all contributing to building something that they believe in that's bigger than themselves. A leader is somebody who can put into words that which does not exist yet. The leader is the one who stands there and says in beautiful, crystal clear words, and he describes that cathedral that hasn't been built in words so clear that others can take that image and they can pass it on to others. Why are you working so hard? Because I believe in it. We're building a cathedral. What cathedral? Let me tell you. Are you describing your cathedral or are you just telling people the wall that you're building? The reason everybody showed up here is because together we're going to build a cathedral. We are all contributing to a world that we would rather live in. It's the leaders of this organization that are describing that world, a world in which we are in control of our own lives, a world in which we live the life that we believe we deserve. Shouldn't we all get that? It's the reason I showed up here. Here's a statistic for you. Over 90% of people go home feeling unfulfilled by their work. That's a real statistic. 90% don't feel fulfilled when they go home at the end of the day. I want to live in a world in which the vast majority of people love what they do. I want to live in a world in which the vast majority of people do business with companies that they trust and love, they work with people that they trust and love, and they go home happier because of it. People who go to work and love what they do come home happier people, and happier people treat their spouses better and they treat their kids better, and they go back to work happy the next day and they treat their colleagues better and they treat their customers better, and those people go home happier and they treat their kids better and their spouses better. It's called world peace. And it happens because of the likes of all of us. This is called scale. This is called scale. There are leaders and there are those who lead. Leaders hold a position of power or influence, but those who lead inspire us. And whether they're individuals or organizations, we follow those who lead not because we have to, but because we want to. We follow those who lead not for them, but for ourselves. This is for people who want to inspire those around them or who want to find somebody to inspire them. I can say without a doubt, you inspire me. Thank you very much.
So I'm embarrassed that I have a career. I talk about things like trust and cooperation, and there should be no demand for my work. But the fact of the matter is there is demand for my work, which means that there's an opportunity. It means that trust and cooperation are not yet standard in our organizations, and yet they should be, and we know that, which is why we're looking for ways to bring those things to our organizations. So I thought I would do something a little different today. You know, when you're speaking to tens of thousands of people and you have the opportunity to share a message, of course, most rational people would say, let's go with something I've talked about lots of times and I'm really good at, but I'm not normal, so I'm going to do something completely new, and I hope this works out. There are two things that I think that great leaders need to have: empathy and perspective. And I think these things are very often forgotten. Leaders are so often so concerned about their status or their position in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge. And I don't think people realize this, and I don't think people train for this. When we're junior, our only responsibility is to be good at our jobs. That's all we really have to do.
And some people actually go get advanced educations so that they can be really good at their jobs, accountants or whatever, right? And you show up and you work hard, and the company will give us tons and tons of training how to do our jobs. They'll show us how to use the software. They'll send us away for a few days to get trained in whatever it is that we're doing for the company. And then they expect us to go be good at our jobs. And that's what we do. We work very hard. And if you're good at your job, they'll promote you. And at some point, you'll get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody shows us how to do that. And that's why we get managers and not leaders. Because the reason our managers are micromanaging us is because they actually do know how to do the job better than us. That's what got them promoted. Really what we have to do is go through a transition. Some people make it quickly, some people make it slowly, and unfortunately some people will never make that transition at all. Which is we have to go through this transition of being responsible for the job and then turning into somebody who's now responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. And as I said before, one of the great things that is lacking in most of our companies is that they are not teaching us how to lead. And leadership is a skill like any other. It is a practicable, learnable skill. And it is something that you work on. It's like a muscle. If you practice it all the days, you will get good at it and you will become a strong leader. If you stop practicing, you will become a weak leader. Like parenting, everyone has the capacity to be a parent. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent, and doesn't mean everybody should be a parent. Leadership is the same. We all have the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean everybody should be a leader, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And the reason is because it comes at great personal sacrifice. Remember, you're not in charge, you're responsible for those in your charge. That means things like when everything goes right, you have to give away all the credit. And when everything goes wrong, you have to take all the responsibility. That sucks, right? It's things like staying late to show somebody what to do. It's things like when something does actually break, when something goes wrong, instead of yelling and screaming and taking over, you say, try again. When the overwhelming pressures are not on them, the overwhelming pressures are on us. At the end of the day, great leaders are not responsible for the job. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. They're not even responsible for the results. I love talking to CEOs and say, what's your priority? And they put their hands on their hips all proudly and say, my priority is my customer. I'm like, really? You haven't talked to a customer in 15 years. There's no CEO on the planet responsible for the customer. They're just not. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the people who are responsible for the customer. I'll tell you a true story. A few months ago, I stayed at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. It is a wonderful hotel. And the reason it's a wonderful hotel is not because of the fancy beds. Any hotel can go and buy a fancy bed. The reason it's a wonderful hotel is because of the people who work there. If you walk past somebody at the Four Seasons and they say hello to you, you get the feeling that they actually wanted to say hello to you. It's not that somebody told them that you have to say hello to all the customers, say hello to all the guests, right? You actually feel that they care. Now, in their lobby, they have a coffee stand. And one afternoon, I went to buy a cup of coffee, and there was a barista by the name of Noah who was serving me. Noah was fantastic. He was friendly and fun, and he was engaging with me, and I had so much fun buying a cup of coffee, I actually think I gave 100% tip, right? He was wonderful. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? And without skipping a beat, Noah says, I love my job. And so I followed up. I said, what is it that the Four Seasons is doing that would make you say to me, I love my job? And without skipping a beat, Noah said, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, if there's anything that I need to do my job better. He said, not just my manager, any manager. And then he said something magical. He says, I also work at Caesar's Palace. And at Caesar's Palace, the managers are trying to make sure we're doing everything right. They catch us when we do things wrong. He says, when I go to work there, I like to keep my head under the radar and just get through the day so I can get my paycheck. He says, here at the Four Seasons, I feel I can be myself. Same person, entirely different experience from the customer who will engage with Noah. So we in leadership are always criticizing the people. We're always saying, we gotta get the right people on the bus. I've gotta fill my team, I gotta get the right people. But the reality is, it's not the people, it's the leadership. If we create the right environment, we will get people like Noah at the Four Seasons. If we create the wrong environment, we will get people like Noah at Caesar's palace. It's not the people. And yet we're so quick to hire and fire. You can't hire and fire your children. If your kids are struggling, we don't say, you gotta see at school, you're up for adoption. So why is it that when somebody has performance problems at work, why is it that our instinct is to say, you're out? We do not practice empathy. What does empathy look like? Here's the lack of empathy. This is normal in our business world. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into our office and says, your numbers have been down for the third quarter in a row. You have to pick up your numbers, otherwise I can't guarantee what the future will look like. How inspired do you think that person is to come to work the next day? Here's what empathy looks like. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into your office and says, your numbers are down for the third quarter in a row. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. What's going on? We all have performance issues. Maybe someone's kid is sick. Maybe they're having problems in their marriage. Maybe one of their parents is dying. We don't know what's going on in their lives. And of course it will affect performance at work. Empathy is being concerned about the human being, not just their output. And we have to practice empathy. And one of the groups that we are pretty bad at practicing empathy with is our young millennials. So let me show you what empathy looks like. Listening to understand, trying to understand someone's point of view and disposition. At 100% of the talks that I give or the meetings that I have, invariably, someone will raise their hand and ask about the millennial problem. Apparently, this young generation is unleadable. Apparently, they have confounded every single company in every single industry. And so now it's at the point where companies have given up and are now just asking millennials, what do you want? And so they say, we want free food and bean bags. And so now every company has free food and bean bags, and guess what? Nothing has changed. So what I thought I would do is show you what empathy looks like. How do we practice empathy with someone we don't understand? How do we practice empathy with an organization or a group that we're struggling with, right? So we have to understand that it breaks down to 4 things. I've broken it down into parenting, technology, impatience, and environment. Let's talk about parenting first. Too many millennials have grown up subject to what has been described as a failed parenting strategy. Too many of them were told as they were growing up that they were special, that they can have whatever they want just because they want it. They got medals for coming in last. They got participation medals, right? And the science on this is already good. We know that it devalues the feeling that somebody who works hard and comes in first place, and it actually makes the person who comes in last embarrassed because they know they don't deserve it. So it actually makes them feel worse. It actually doesn't help. There are a lot of kids who got into honors classes, not because they deserved it, but because their parents complained. And they got A's not because they earned them, but because the teachers didn't want to deal with the parents, right? Then those kids graduate and they start a job. And in an instant, they find out that they're not special, that you don't get anything just because you want it. You get nothing for coming in last, and your parents cannot help you get a promotion. And in an instant, their entire self-image is completely shattered. In an instant, the way they view themselves has completely changed, turned on its head. And so what you find is that there's an entire generation growing up with lower self-esteem than previous generations. Remember, they have grown up in an Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat world in which they are very, very good at putting filters on everything. They're very, very good at curating how they want to be seen. And we think they're full of confidence. They seem to have all the answers. They seem to be telling us what to do. At the end of the day, it's just not there. It's just not true. It's just not true. Their confidence is a lot weaker than before. They don't know where they're coming from. They don't know where they're going. They're unsure of themselves, and they lack the courage to ask. We say things like, my door is always open, assuming that they have the courage to walk through the door. number one. Then we add in technology. There's a chemical in our body called dopamine. Dopamine is responsible for the feelings we get when we find something we're looking for or we accomplish something we set out to accomplish. You know that great feeling you get when you cross something off your to-do list, or when you win the game, when you hit the target, right? Win the client, get the promotion, whatever it is. That elation, find your keys. That elation comes from a chemical in our body called dopamine, right? Now, other substances, other things that release dopamine include alcohol, nicotine, gambling. That's what makes us feel good when we engage with those things, and it's the root of a lot of addiction. In fact, almost every alcoholic on the planet discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. You see, when we're very, very young, the only approval we need is approval from our parents. And then as we go through adolescence, we now crave the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the larger tribe. Very, very important, right? It's a time of high stress and high anxiety, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and the numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stress, and that becomes hardwired, and then for the rest of their lives, when they suffer some kind of extreme stress, they don't turn to a person, they turn to the bottle, right? Now, we also know that dopamine is released with cell phones and social media. So that bing, buzz, flash, and beep that we get from our phones that feels so good, it releases dopamine. We like getting it. Yes, we all hate all the emails, but we love the bing, right? We've all been in this position. You know, you're feeling a little bit down, you're feeling a little bit sorry, maybe feeling a little bit sad. And so what do? We send out 10 texts to 10 friends. Hi, 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 hi. And we hope that they write back because it feels good, right? So now we have a young generation with basically unfettered access to social media and cell phones. We have age restrictions on alcohol, we have age restrictions on smoking, and we have age restrictions on gambling. We have no age restrictions on this other dopamine-producing device called social media or cell phones. It's the equivalent of throwing open the liquor cabinet and telling our young adolescents, I know this is a stressful time, try the vodka, it'll get you through these hard times. That's basically what we're doing. And so what's happening is it's becoming hardwired, where our young generation isn't learning the coping skills and coping mechanisms to turn to another human being when they're struggling or stressed. They're turning to social media or their cell phones. Their self-worth sometimes becomes wrapped up in how many likes they get. They obsessively check how many likes, and actually will get depressed if they don't get any. You see them going out with their friends, and instead of connecting with their friends, they will simply sit and talk on the phone. Let me show you something that's really powerful. Can I borrow your phone, please? There's one right there in between you. Just let me borrow that for a sec. I'm asking you to give me somebody else's phone. You don't have to turn it on. I just need it. Thank you. So let me show you the subconscious power of this device. What if I were to hold my phone while I'm giving this presentation? I'm not checking it, it's not buzzing, it's not beeping. I'm simply holding it. Do you feel like you're the most important thing to me right now? No, you do not. And this is an artificial environment. Now think about how often this phone is out while we're talking to other people. Hey boss, can I talk to you? Sure, what's on your mind? As opposed to, sure, what's on your mind? We go out for dinner or lunch with our family and our friends. We have meetings, and we put the phone on the table, which sends a subconscious message to everybody else in the room that this is not that important to me. You're not that important to me. And by the way, putting your phone upside down is not more polite. This is my favorite one, where the phone rings in the middle of a dinner, in the middle of a lunch, in the middle of a meeting, and somebody goes, I'm not gonna answer it. Oh my God, just so magnanimous. Right? Thank you. Right? Put it away, keep it away, because what it does is it actually hurts our ability to relate to each other. Now you look at young kids these days, they're on them all the time. I don't blame them, it is addiction. We yell and scream at them, but it's like yelling and screaming at an alcoholic. It doesn't help the fact that it's a chemical addiction, right? So you take an insecure generation that now, through no fault of their own, struggles to cope with stress. They don't know how to cope with and deal with stress. And as they have told me, many of them will admit that they struggle to form deep, meaningful relationships. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial, right? That their friends they know would cancel on them if they get a better plan, that they wouldn't really know who to talk to if they get depressed. And maybe they'll turn to an online support group, which is not a real thing. It's not human, right? And we've seen the impact of this. We're starting to see rises of depression in this generation. We're starting to see a rise of suicide in this generation. We're starting to see a rise of accidental death due to drug overdose from this generation. Universities are currently dealing with an epidemic that they've never dealt with before, which is the number of kids requesting leaves of absence due to depression, right? Now, those are all extreme examples. The less extreme and more likely example is that someone will go through life just never really finding joy or fulfillment, and everything's just fine. How's your job? It's fine. How are your friends? They're fine. But no joy, because you just cannot, because joy, fulfillment comes from this. It comes from human interaction. We are social animals and we need it. And we have to learn to rely on our friends. And that skill is desperately lacking. So you add in the next one, impatience. This generation is often accused of being entitled. And if you've worked with any of them before, sure seems that way. But I would argue that we're misreading the tea leaves. They're not entitled, they're impatient. Again, let's practice empathy. How did they grow up? They grew up in a world of instant gratification. You want to buy something, you go on Amazon, it shows up the next day. You want to watch a movie, you don't check movie times, you just log on and download it whenever you want to watch it. Stream it, right? You want to watch a TV show, you don't wait week to week to week. You just binge watch for the weekend. In fact, if you want to get hold of somebody, you don't leave a message on their machine and wait 4 hours for them to get the message and call you back. You just text them and they'll call you, they'll get back to you literally instantaneously. Heck, if you want to go on a date, you don't even have to be like, hey, you just swipe right, you got a date. Never learned the skill set of like, what are you doing, right? You can have 4 dates in a night. In other words, everything comes instantaneously. They have falsely applied the instant gratification model to life fulfillment and career fulfillment. They want it all instantaneously. The problem is life, relationships, career are not destinations. Like, look, I found the job I love. That's not how it works. It's not a scavenger hunt. I'm looking for the job that will, no, it doesn't work that way. It's a journey. It's the same with love. It's like, I found love. No, you didn't. You work hard every single day to stay in love. It's a journey. It's as if they're standing at the foot of a mountain. They know exactly what they want. They can see the summit. What they don't see is the mountain. I talked to some recent college grads who are in their entry-level jobs on a regular basis, and I'll ask them things like, how's it going? And they'll say, yeah, I think I'm gonna quit. I'm like, why? They're like, I'm not making an impact. I'm like, you've been here 8 months, right? And this is the problem. They see it as destination. I'm not making an impact. I hear it all the time. But they don't even know what that means, impact. Yes, we all want to make an impact. What kind of impact? What do you want to do? How do you want to contribute to the world? This is what vision is. This is what why is. It's become generic and abstract. But the problem is they're wafting around. They're looking for the right, they'll go from job to job to job, hoping that the next one sticks. They go from relationship to relationship, hoping that the next one is the love that I've been looking for. They don't know how to ask for help, and it makes them feel even worse because they can't find the thing that they're looking for. Maybe it's me. So you have an insecure generation that doesn't have coping mechanisms, that wants everything resolved and resolved now. I have a thought, let me just send a text, as opposed to, let me wait an hour when I'm done with lunch with you, and then I'll send my text, for example. And then we get to the fourth and most egregious of the 4 observations, environment. We're now taking this wonderful, smart, idealistic, ambitious, hardworking, good group of people that were dealt a bad hand, and we're putting them in corporate environments that do not care about them as human beings. Right? We have, for some reason, our work world has changed over the past 20 and 30 years. We are suffering the side effects of business theories left over from the 80s and 90s. And they are bad for people, and they are bad for business. Let me give you an example. The concept of shareholder supremacy was a theory proposed in the late 1970s. It was popularized in the 80s and 90s. It is now standard form today. You talk to any public company and you ask them their priority and they say maximize shareholder value. Really? That's like a coach prioritizing the needs of the fans over the needs of the players. How are you going to build a winning team with that model? But that's normal today. We don't even perceive it as broken or damaged or wrong or outdated. Remember, the 80s and 90s were boom years with relative peace and a kinder, gentler Cold War. Nobody was practicing hiding under their desks in school anymore. We are no longer in those times. These are no longer boom years. These are no longer peaceful times, and those models cannot work today. Here's another one. Mass layoffs. Using someone's livelihood to balance the books, right? It's so normal in America today that we don't even understand how broken and how damaging it is, not only to human beings, but to business. You know, companies talk about how they want to build trust and cooperation and they announce a round of layoffs. Do you know the quickest way to destroy trust and destroy cooperation in a business, literally in one day? Lay people off, and everyone gets scared, right? Can you imagine sending someone home to say, honey, I can no longer provide for our family because the company missed its arbitrary projections this year? And forget about the people who lost their job. Think about the people who kept their jobs. Because every single decision a company makes is a piece of communication. And the company has just communicated to everybody else, this is not a meritocracy. We don't care how hard you work or how long you've worked here. If we miss our numbers and you happen to fall on the wrong side of the spreadsheet, I'm sorry, we cannot guarantee employment. In other words, we come to work every day afraid. And we're asking our youngest generation to work in environments where how would any of us ever stand up and admit, I made a mistake? We're constantly being told, you have to be vulnerable. Leaders are vulnerable. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean you walk around crying, I'm vulnerable, right? No, what vulnerability means is you create an environment in which someone feels safe enough to raise their hand and said, I don't know what I'm doing. You've given me a job and I haven't been trained to do it. I need help. I made a mistake. I screwed something up. I'm scared. I'm worried. All of these things no one would ever admit inside a company because it puts a target on your head in case there's another round. And so we keep it to ourselves. And how can a company ever do well if nobody's ever willing to admit they made a mistake, that's scared, or they don't know what they're doing? And so we've literally created cultures in which every single day everybody comes to work and lies, hides, and fakes. And we're asking our youngest generation to work and succeed and find themselves and build their confidence and overcome their addiction to technology and build strong relationships at work. We're asking them to do this, and these are the environments we've created. We keep saying to them, you're the future leaders. We're the leaders now. We're in control. What are we doing? This is what empathy means. It means if there's an entire generation struggling, maybe it's not them. It's like, you know, the only thing that the common factor in all my failed relationships? Me. Same thing. Well, we just can't get the right performance out of our people. Maybe it's you, right? It's not a generation. It's not them. They're not difficult or hard to understand. They're human beings like the rest of us, trying to find their way, trying to work in a place where they feel that someone cares about them as a human being. By the way, that's what we all want. In other words, it's not even generational. It's all of us. This is the practice of empathy, that if we're struggling to communicate to someone, if we're struggling to help someone be at their natural best, I'm tired of people saying to me, how do I get the best out of my people? Really, that's what you want? They're like a towel, you just wring them. How can I get the most out of them? No, how do I help my people be at their natural best? Right? We're not asking these questions. We are not practicing empathy. We have to start by practicing empathy and relate to what they may be going through, and it will profoundly change the decisions we make. It will profoundly change the way we see the world. Someone's driving to work, you're driving to work, and someone wants to cut into your lane. What do? Do you pull your car up if you let them in. Most of us pull our cars up and go like this. You wait your turn. Now let's practice empathy. I don't know, maybe they've been out of work for 6 months. Maybe they had trouble getting the kids out to school this morning and now they're running late for a really important interview and they just have to get to this interview and they're gonna cut into our lane. Or maybe they're just a bastard, I don't know. But that's the point. We don't know. We don't know. And the practice of empathy will say, I'll let them in and I'll arrive to work 1 car length late. Right? We don't always have to be right. We don't always have to be in charge. We don't always have to be the one who succeeds. It's not about winning or losing. And that's where I go to the second point. After empathy comes perspective, where it's not about winning or losing. In game theory, there are 2 kinds of games. There are finite games and there are infinite games. And this is how you're going to change your perspective. Right? A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed upon objective. Baseball, for example. We know the rules, we all agree to the rules, and whoever has more runs at the end of 9 innings is the winner, and the game is over. No one ever says, if we can just play 2 more innings, I know we can come back. It doesn't work that way. The game is over, right? That's a finite game. Then you have an infinite game. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players. The rules are changeable, and the objective is to keep the game in play, to perpetuate the game. When you pit a finite player versus a finite player, the system is stable. Baseball is stable, right? When you pit an infinite player versus an infinite player, the system is also stable. Like the Cold War, for example, because there cannot be a winner and a loser. There are no winners and losers in an infinite game, right? It doesn't exist. And because there are no winners or losers, what ends up happening in the infinite contest is players drop out when they run out of the will or the resources to play. But there's no winners or losers. Problems arise when you pit a finite player versus an infinite player, because a finite player is playing to win, and an infinite player is playing to keep the game going. Right? This is what happened to us in Vietnam. We were playing to win, and the Vietnamese were fighting for their lives. We were the ones who got stuck in quagmire. This is the Soviet Union and Afghanistan. They were trying to beat the Mujahideen, and the Mujahideen would fight for as long as is necessary. Quagmire. Now let's look at business. The game of business has pre-existed or has existed long before every single company that exists on this planet today. And it will outlast every single company that exists on this planet today. There's no winning the game of business. And the reason is because we haven't agreed to the rules. I get such a kick out of this. You realize how many companies actually don't know the game they're in, right? Listen to the language that the companies use. We're trying to beat our competition. We're trying to be number 1. Did you know that we were ranked number 1? Look at the listing. Based on what criteria? Revenues, profits, market share, square footage, number of employees, based on what time frame? A quarter, a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years? I haven't agreed to those standards. How can you declare yourself the winner? How can you declare yourself number 1 where no one else in the game has agreed to the rules? It's arbitrary. There is no winning because there's no end. In other words, companies are playing finite games. Listen to their language. They're trying to beat their competition. What does that even mean? It's the leaders and the companies that understand the game that they're in and organize their resources and their decision-making around the infinite contest that outlast and frustrate their competition. All the companies that we refer to as the exceptions, Southwest Airlines, Apple Computers, Harley Davidson, they're the exception. No, they're playing the infinite contest. They frustrate their competition, is what happens. That's what happens, because they're not playing to win. Jim Senegal, the founder of Costco, which is the only real company that gives Walmart a run for its money, he says public companies are looking to succeed for the quarter. He says, we're looking for the next 50 years. You can hear him. He's playing the infinite contest. I spoke at a leadership summit for Microsoft. I also spoke at a leadership summit for Apple. Now, at the Microsoft summit, I would say 70% of the executives, and this was under the Steve Ballmer days, I would say about 70% of the executives spent about 70% of their presentations talking about how to beat Apple. At the Apple Summit, 100% of the executives spent 100% of their presentations talking about how to help teachers teach and how to help students learn. One was obsessed with their competition, the other one was obsessed with where they're going. So at the end of my presentation at Microsoft, they gave me a gift. They gave me the new Zune, which was the competitor to the iPod Touch when it was a thing, right? And I have to tell you, this piece of technology was spectacular. It was beautiful. The user interface was incredible. The design was amazing. It was intuitive. It was one of the most beautiful, elegant pieces of technology I'd ever seen, right? Now, it didn't work with iTunes, which is an entirely different problem. I couldn't use it. But that's something else. I'm sitting in the back of a taxi with a senior Apple executive, sort of employee number 12 kind of guy, and I decide to stir the pot. And I turn to him and I say, you know, I spoke at a Microsoft summit and they gave me their new Zune, and I have to tell you, it is so much better than your iPod Touch. And he turned to me and said, I have no doubt. Conversation over. Because the infinite player isn't playing to be number one every day with every product. They're playing to outlast the competition. If I had said to Microsoft, oh, I've got the new iPod Touch, it's so much better than your new Zune, they would have said, can we see it? What does it do? We have to see it. Because one is obsessed with their competition, the other is obsessed with why they do what they do, the other is obsessed with where they're going. And the reason Apple frustrates their competition is because secretly, they're not even competing against them. They're competing against themselves. And they understand that sometimes you're a little bit ahead, and sometimes you're a little bit behind. And sometimes your product is better, and sometimes you're not. But if you wake up every single morning and compete against yourself, how do I make our products better than they were yesterday? How do I take care of our customers better than we did yesterday? How do we advance our cause more efficiently, more productively than we did yesterday? How do we find new solutions to advance our calling, our cause, our purpose, our belief, our why every single day? What you'll find is over time, you will probably be ahead more often. Those who play the infinite game understand it's not about the battle, it's about the war. And they don't play to win every day. And they frustrate their competition until their competition drops out of the game. Every single bankruptcy, almost every merger and acquisition is basically a company saying we no longer have the will or the resources to continue to play, and we have no choice to either drop out of the game or merge our resources with another player so that we can stay in the game. That's what that is. And if you think about the number of bankruptcies and mergers and acquisitions, it's kind of proof that most companies don't even know the game they're in. You want to be a great leader, start with empathy. You want to be a great leader, change your perspective and play the game you're actually playing. Thank you very much.
Over the next couple of days, you'll probably hear a lot about how to make better design, how to execute better, how to consider your clients or the end user when you're doing what you have to do. And I'd like to add another item to the list to consider as you sit here for the next 2 days, which is how can you help the human race? How can you help the human race, the human species, progress? I'm not joking either. This is something I think we all have to be aware of. At the end of the day, the human animal is a social animal. And our very survival depends on our ability to form communities, to form cultures. What's a community? What's a culture? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs, right? What's a country? It's a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. What's a company? It should be a group of people with a common set of values and beliefs. When we're surrounded by people who believe what we believe, something remarkable happens. Trust emerges. And make no mistake of it, trust is a feeling, a distinctly human feeling. You know, we all have friends who are total screw-ups, and yet we still trust them, right? Trust is not a checklist. Simply doing everything you say you're going to do does not mean people will inherently trust you. It just means you're reliable. We need trust, right? We need trust. When we're surrounded by people who believe what we believe and trust starts to emerge, when we trust them and they trust us, we're more willing to take risks. We're more willing to experiment, which requires failure. We're more willing to explore and go somewhere that no one has ever gone before with the confidence that if we fail, if we trip over, if we turn our backs, that those within our community, those who we trust and who trust us, will look after us while we're gone, will pick us up when we fall over, will help us when we're hurt. Our very survival depends on it. We're not good at everything. We're not good by ourselves. You know, if I send you out to go fight a saber-toothed tiger by yourself, odds are tiger 1, you 0. It's not going to go very well. But if you go out as a group, we're pretty damn amazing. And the reason is because we all have our certain strengths and we all have our certain weaknesses. And the goal is not to fix your weaknesses. The goal is to amplify your strengths and surround yourself with the people who can do what you can't do. But it's not just based on skills and application and experience. It's based on what you believe. It's based on what you believe. You see, simply being good at something and having somebody else being good at what you're no good at does not mean you will trust each other. Trust, the sense of trust comes from the sense of common values and common beliefs. I can prove it. How many of you are from New York? Okay, a bunch of you. Are you friends with everybody in New York? Why not? Why not? But when you go to Los Angeles and you meet someone from New York, you're like, hey, I'm from New York, and you're best friends. Right? And when you go to France, there you are on the Paris metro, minding your own business, and you hear an American accent behind you, and you turn around, and you say, hey, where are you from? They say, Los Angeles. You're like, hey, I'm from New York, and you're best friends. Because when you're surrounded by people who don't believe what you believe, when you're in a strange environment where you don't feel comfortable, you look for anyone who may share some of the same values and beliefs that you have, and you start to form a very real and very intense bond with them, simply because you know that they have a basic understanding of how you grew up, of the things that you care about, of the life that you live back home. Well, the same is true when we go to work. Do we want to go to work with people who understand us, who believe what we believe, who have a similar view of the world that has nothing to do with their opinions and the differences that we share? That's good. That's called diversity. That's called advantages to problem solving, which is we can all look at the same thing from a different angle and come up with solutions. What I'm talking about is why should you help each other in the first place? What are you in pursuit of? Now the question is what creates that sense of values and beliefs? What creates that sense of trust? Right? Our very human instinct. We know how to find people who believe what we believe. Our survival depends on it. We're biologically gifted with this idea. If I ask you to go out in the street and find all the people who believe what you believe, you know exactly what to do. You're going to strike up conversations. You're going to start talking to people. And either you'll have a good feeling about them or you won't. Either you'll have chemistry, whatever that means, or you don't. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's slow. But we know how to do it. It's called making friends, it's called dating, it's called networking. We have the innate ability to do it. The problem is it's not scalable. The problem is you're the only one who had that gut feeling. But if you know the symbols to look for, if you know how to see the things that people are doing and saying, that you can find them. If I tell you to go out on the street and find all the people wearing red hats, it's easy. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. They're easy to spot simply because they have a symbol. They have something that they're giving off that says something about who they are and what they believe. When you were standing on that Paris metro, that American accent that you heard was a symbol. It was a sign. You don't know these people, and yet you trust them. They will say to you, you guys have to go to this restaurant. And you'll go, okay, and you'll go to that restaurant because they told you to. Now, what if you were walking down the street and some stranger just says, hey, you got to go to this restaurant? You'd be like, crackpot, right? You're going to ignore them. This is what trust does. This is why we don't research everything. We don't need access to all information. Let's say you want to go buy a new television, right? So you do all your research, consumer reports, look it all up, right? I know what I'm going to buy, I know what I'm going to do. I'm getting the LG, it's the best on the market, can't wait to get it, right? So that's what you've decided to do this weekend. That Friday night, you go over to a friend's house, your friend, the gadget guy, the guy who has the first of everything, right? And you go to his house and you can't wait to show off and share with him what you're going to do with all your research. And you say, I'm getting the new LG. And he says, nah, man, get the Sony. It's so much better. In that one instant, either he's completely turned all of your research on its head, and you're going to have to go back and do all the research again. Is he right? Should I trust him? Should I believe him? Or you just bought a Sony. All that marketing, all that research, out the tubes, down the drain. It doesn't matter. Because the person that you trust, the person from within your community,
told you that you should get the Sony, and you trust him. He knows more than you. He must be right. I trust him. I don't have to know everything. Again, you're walking down the street. You accidentally bump shoulders with somebody, and they say, where are you going? You say, oh, I'm going to Best Buy to get the new LG. They go, don't get the new LG. I know everything about this stuff. Get the Sony. Crackpot, right? You're going to ignore the person. We don't trust everyone. We trust people from within our community. But you have to know what to look for. Just as I said before, when you find the people with the red hats, every single piece of communication we make, every decision we make in our lives is a piece of communication. Every decision we make in our lives as individuals or as organizations is a piece of communication. It's our way of saying something about who we are and what we believe. This is why authenticity matters. This is why you have to say and do the things you actually believe, because the things you say and do are symbols of who you are. And we look for those symbols so we can find people who believe what we believe. Our very survival depends on it. So if you're putting out false symbols, you will attract people to those symbols, but you won't be able to form trust with them. This is what Tiger Woods did to us. He lied. He lied. He told us what he thought we wanted to hear. And it was great, and we were drawn to it. And all of us who kind of liked that idea of the sort of the good guy, were drawn to it, until we found out it was a lie. He could have been the bad boy of golf. He could have had all the same endorsements and had a fantastic career and still been hailed as one of the great athletes of our day. But he didn't. He chose to lie. Good luck forming trust again, Tiger. We don't believe you. We don't trust you. The goal of putting something out there, if you say what you believe and you do what you believe, you will attract people who believe what you believe. If you go to one of your friends and you say to one of your friends, how would you like me to dress so that you'll like me better? How would you want me to address you? How do you want me to speak so that you'll like me more? Right? Your friends are going to look at you and be like, what are you talking about? You're like, come on. What should I wear so that you'll find me more appealing? And how would you like me to speak to you so that you'll like me more? And your friends are going to tell you, just be yourself. That's why I like you. Just be yourself. Now think about what we do in industry. What do? We do market research, and we go out and we ask the customers, what kind of things, what style should we speak to you? How should we decorate ourselves? What kind of things are you drawn to so that we can do those things so you'll like us more? It's just as ridiculous. It's just as ridiculous. Organizations should say and do the things they actually believe, and they will attract people who believe what they believe. Or they can choose to lie, and at the slightest hint that they might be lying, cynicism sets in. And people start saying, I'm not sure I can trust these guys because there's not a lot of consistency in all the things they say and do, which means they can't have a very strong belief set or they're lying to me. And we call them inauthentic. The entire process of asking other people who we should be is inauthentic. That's hilarious to me. All these positioning studies we do are inherent. We're going to do a study to find out from people so we can be more authentic. That's hilarious. Say and do what you actually believe, and the symbols you put out there, the things you say and the things you do, those red hats are ways that people can find you. What you have the ability to do as designers is create those symbols and allow people to use those things to say something about who they are. Work for companies, work for clients, work for people who you believe what they believe. Show up and feel a part of something bigger than yourself. And your part is to put what they believe into pictures and words and symbols and graphics so that other people can use those things to say something about who they are. People put Harley-Davidson logos on their body to say something about who they are. Corporate logo. Ain't no Procter & Gamble's tattooed on anybody's arm. Because Harley means something. They stand for something. People put that tattoo on there not to tell you that they own a motorcycle. They put that tattoo there to tell you something about themselves. You ever see anybody with a Mac laptop put a sticker over that beautiful shining apple? Ain't never gonna happen. Then how will you know who I am? Do you ever see anybody with a PC break out the Windex to clean out their computer? Mac people? Have you ever seen a dirty Mac? Doesn't exist. Does not exist. Why? Because it's who I am. These are symbols we use, the companies that are crystal clear in what they believe.
and they're disciplined in how they do it, and they're consistent in what they do, and everything they say and everything they do serves as a symbol of the set of values and beliefs, we use those symbols to say something about who we are. We surround ourselves with the people and the products and the brands that say something about who we are. And when we can find the people who believe what we believe, we're weirdly drawn to them because our very survival depends on it. We need it. And so the more you can give of yourself, the more you can give of what you believe, the more you can with discipline, say and do the things you actually believe, strange things start to happen. Just like on that metro in Paris, simply because of one tiny little symbol that was put out there, that we are from the same place. We may have the same values, we may have the same beliefs, we're drawn to each other, and we legitimately trust each other, and more importantly, we'll look out for each other. And that's the key to all of this. We go to work every day, and we sit at our computers, and we sit at our desks, and we solve problems by sending emails. Get up and go talk to somebody. It's called human interaction, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I'll tell you a quick story. I was on a plane it was about a week ago, actually. It was only about a week ago. And I was coming down the aisle, and my seatmate, I guess, my companion for the next 5 hours, was already sitting down. She was in the aisle, and I had the window seat. And you know, we've all had this experience where you're the one who gets there first, and you look down and you hope that it's that one. Please, 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 no. Praying that becomes your seatmate. I've had many fantasies about wives and girlfriends that never sat down next to me. It's better than an icebreaker, right? Hi, right? Sitting next to you. And equally, we've seen people coming down the aisle saying, please don't sit next to me, please don't sit next to me, please. No, we've all done that. Well, she ignored me entirely. So I could only assume that she was praying that I wouldn't sit next to her. I somehow think, though, she was hoping that no one would sit next to her. So you know what it's like. We've all been on planes. You travel and you go to the aisle, and custom dictates, just general politeness, that the person looks up to you and says, you sitting here? She didn't. She completely ignored me. Had her face in her book, and put my bag in the overhead compartment. She still ignored me, to the point where I actually had to say, excuse me, I'm sitting there. And she sort of begrudgingly moved aside. She didn't stand up. She begrudgingly moved her leg to the side and went, right? Like this was something she didn't expect would happen, right? So I sat down. I knew exactly what this flight was going to be like. I would have my headphones on for 5 hours, and I would ignore the person sitting next to me and be afraid every time I had to go to the bathroom. And when I'm on a plane, the pressure, I have to go more often. It's very embarrassing. And so I sit down as soon as I've gone, and I have to go immediately again. I'm going to have a bladder infection because, anyway, it's a different story. And so we got into flight. We sort of reached altitude, and the flight attendant came around to ask us if we wanted breakfast. And she came over to us and she said, would you like cereal? Would you like the omelet? She said to me. And I said, I'll have the cereal. And she turns to my sweet mate and my seatmate. That's funny. Semi-sweet. Bitter. She turns to my seatmate and she says, do you want the omelet or do you want the cereal? And she says, I'll also have the cereal. 2 cereals. 4 minutes later, the flight attendant comes back and says, I only have 1 cereal. So now I've already decided in my mind that I was going to say to my seatmate, you have the cereal, right? I had already decided. But before the words could even come out of my mouth, she turns to the flight attendant and says, I'll have the cereal. And at that point, I hated her. And here's the joke. She lacks a spirit of generosity. No matter what option she would have chosen, she would have gotten the cereal. For one, if she'd waited for 3 seconds and heard that I was about to offer it to her, she would have got the cereal, right? If she absolutely had to have the cereal, she could have turned to me and said, do you mind if I have the cereal? And I would have said, go right ahead, right? She could have even apologized or said thank you to me. I'm really sorry, allergic to eggs. Can I have this cereal? In other words, no matter what option she chose, she would have got the cereal. But the one option she went with was to take a selfish perspective, to go for what she wanted and ignore the wants, desires, or needs of anyone around her, even including just being polite. In other words, she didn't have to give me the cereal. She could have just been polite about it, right? Now, from that point on, I really hated her. And I wrote an article about this little experience while I was on the plane sitting next to her and made no attempt to turn the screen so she couldn't read it, secretly hoping she was. Salt and pepper hair, glasses. I'm good, thank you. And more importantly now, I had no desire to do anything for her anymore, right? Now, when we got done, when the flight landed, perhaps as a nice person, if she had just established some sort of rapport with me, just because I'm a nice guy, I would have taken her case down. Here you go, you know? But I didn't, and I wasn't going to. Or if I did, it wouldn't have been with a spirit of generosity. If I did, it would have been as a sort of a smug remark, like, there you go, I'm still nice. It would have been as a, you know, one of those deals. Or I would have done it simply as some sort of positive reinforcement to myself that despite this horrible person, I'm still a nice guy, right? No matter which one would have motivated me to take that case down, it wouldn't have been with a spirit of generosity. It would have been some sort of selfish act or some sort of aggressive act, right? It's the spirit of generosity. If we're willing to give to the person next to us, it's amazing what they'll be willing to give to us, right? And again, our very survival depends on this. We need to trust each other, and we're more willing to trust somebody who's willing to help us. I hate the whole self-help industry, right? How can you be happy? What are the 5 steps you can follow to be a millionaire? What are the 7 steps that you need to get the career that you want? You know, me, 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 me. What about helping the guy next to you? What are the 5 steps that you can do to help the person next to you lose some weight? What are the 7 steps that you can follow to help the person next to you find the job that they want? Do you know how we get fulfillment? You can be happy because you did things at work. You can be proud because you did things at work. You can be excited because you had a big success at work. But do you know how you feel fulfilled at work? When you do something for someone else. It's the only way we get that feeling. It's the only way we get that feeling. Do you know why the statistics say that over 90% of people don't feel fulfilled by the work they do? It's not because of the job, it's not because of the pay, it's not because of the benefits. It's because we don't help each other anymore. We sit in our cubes and we work. And anything that we turn to anybody is because we need something, we need to get something. And yet we don't put ourselves out there simply for no other reason than to help somebody else. You know what generosity is? Generosity is doing something for someone else expecting nothing in return. At no point ever. I did something for him, why won't he help me? It's not an equation. It's designed to help you feel good. And Mother Nature has given us this feeling when we do something for someone else to encourage us to do it. Because when we are in groups, when we are surrounded by people who believe what we believe, trust emerges and our very survival and progress goes up. Sex feels good. It's why we do it. And Mother Nature has provided that it will feel good so that we can do it more, so that we can procreate. That was not an accident, right? Well, the same goes here. That sense of fulfillment that we get was designed so that we'll do it more, so not only will we procreate, but we'll create strong senses of bonds and cultures amongst each other. I did a little experiment with a homeless person. Not like on them, it's not like electrodes. With them, voluntarily helped me. Because the whole idea of giving, right? You've all walked down the street and you've all seen someone begging and you either have or haven't thrown a few pennies in their cup. When you do, you feel good. You bought that feeling. That is a legitimate commercial transaction. You know, commercial transactions are defined as the exchange of consideration. There was an exchange of consideration here. You gave money, you got the feeling of goodwill. You paid for that feeling. If you didn't give money, you either feel nothing or you feel bad. You can't feel good by not giving. All right? You paid for that feeling. So now the question is, how is that person encouraging us to give? The joke is, they act like every corporation in the world. They talk about themselves. Me, 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 right? Like they sit there with their little outdoor advertising, little sign, right? And it says, I'm homeless, I'm hungry, I got 12 kids, I'm a veteran, God bless. They got it all in there, trying to appeal to somebody, the religious vote, the veteran vote, you know, the child sympathizer, surround yourself with lots of pets, go for that one too, right? All in an attempt to get something from someone. Takers, not givers, right? All about me. Well, what do corporations do? We've added more RAM, we've added more ROM, we've added more speed. This one's number one. We're the biggest, we're the best. We've been around since 1969. We're better than them, we're faster than them. We're more efficient than that one. Me, 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 me. And so even if we buy their product, guess what? We don't feel much. So I did this little experiment. I found a nice homeless lady on the streets of New York who's willing to help out. And I learned that with her sign, which was pretty typical, I'm homeless, I'm hungry, blah, 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 she makes between $20 and $30 a day for her day's worth of work, 8 to 10 hours of sitting there selling Goodwill. 8 to 10 hours, she'll make $20 to $30. $30 is considered a good day. I changed her sign, and the new sign made her $40 in 2 hours. And then she left. It's one of the reasons she's homeless is because she's decided that she only needs $20 to $30 a day to live. If she stayed, she would have made $150. The point is she made $40 in 2 hours. What did the sign say? The sign said, if you only give once a month, please think of me next time. It has nothing to do with the taker. It has everything to do with the giver. And what are the objections people give when they don't give? I can't give to everyone. How do I know that they really need it? And so I addressed both those concerns. I know you can't give to everyone. So if you only give once a month, my cause is legitimate. I will still be here when you're ready to give. $40, 2 hours. Make it about them, not about you. The fact of the matter is 100% of customers are people. And 100% of clients are people. And 100% of employees are people. I don't care how good your product is, I don't care how good your marketing is, I don't care how good your design is. If you don't understand people, you don't understand business. We are social animals, we are human beings, and our survival depends on our ability to form trusting relationships. We could have had this conference online. I could have given the same talk sitting behind my computer. We could have all turned on our WebEx. We could have all sat at our terminals, and I would have given you the exact same information. Would it have been the same? No, I'm not there. There's this weird thing about human interaction, right? We can't form trust without, you could like what I say, but you wouldn't be able to form trust without it. In fact, simply being here, we all say the same thing. You could have for 2 days, absolutely boring, abysmal speakers. Boring, 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 right? We've all been to those. Maybe there's one shining star. You're like, well, I like him, you know? And what do we say when we leave? The speakers sucked, but I'm glad I went because I met some great people. It's this. This is what the conference is all about. You showed up not because you're in an industry. You showed up because you have a common set of values and beliefs. There's a million design conferences. You got to take time out of your day. You got to pay money. It's called sacrifice. It's called payment. It's called risk. But you're here simply because you know something about each other. When you go out on the street in an area where you don't belong, where you're not amongst people who believe what you believe, and you see somebody with the same badge as you and you haven't met them yet, you're going to go, hey, why? They're just as much of a stranger as any other person on the street. But because they have that little symbol that says that I believe what you believe, I'm a little bit like you, we can form a bond very quickly and instantly. You do. You do. It's called human beings. Do you ever watch Deadliest Catch on the Discovery Channel? I was flipping through the channels one night and Deadliest Catch came on. And on this episode, just random, they were in a huge storm. Now, for those of you who don't know Deadliest Catch, they take these crab fishing boats out in the Bering Sea, which is like terrible, and they put cameras on them, and we watch, right? The reason that's, I guess, significant is because these crab fishermen have, I think, one of the top 5 deadliest jobs in the world. I don't know what the exact number is, but dozens of fishermen die every year doing this. We apparently find that entertaining, which it actually is. So they have cameras only on 5 or 6 of the ships, even though there are many, many, many ships that go out fishing every season. And they don't really come into proximity with each other because the ocean's huge, and they usually sabotage each other and give each other false information because they're all competitors. They're all looking to get the crabs and make sure that they find them and somebody else doesn't. And it's business, right? It's just business. It's okay. We all do the same thing in our own companies. And in this one episode, this big, huge storm was so violent that they had to bring all the pots, which are the big cages that they catch the crabs in. They had to bring all the pots back on the boat and wait out the storm. And just by dumb luck, one of the boats that had cameras on it was in proximity of a boat that didn't have cameras on it. And so they had secured all their pots on the deck, and so they started filming the other boat. And they filmed a guy climbing on the outside of the cage, securing the pots. And all of a sudden, a huge wave hits the side of the boat, and the guy's not there anymore. And the people on the boat with the cameras start screaming, "Man overboard, man overboard, man overboard." And they turn their boat towards where they think he might be. He's a stranger. They don't know him. They don't know the crew members of the other boat. And yet they react. And they turn towards him. And they find him in the drink. And for those of you who don't understand how dangerous this is, if the water is so cold that if you're in the water for, I think that it's a minute or a minute 30, hypothermia will set in and you die. And they come upon him, and he's screaming, "Don't let me die, don't let me die." And they pull him on board, not out of the woods yet. They strip off his clothes because it's wet and cold, and they wrap blankets around him to prevent hypothermia from setting in. And he survives. And it's overwhelming. And the captain comes down, and this is all on, you can go watch it on TV. The captain comes down, and he hugs this stranger, this young man, his competitor. He hugs this guy as if he's his own son. I lost it. Everybody is crying. And you realize what happened here was a human interaction. And the reason that they risk their own lives to help this other person, even though they spend every other day trying to get ahead and sabotage, is because at the end of the day, they're all crab fishermen. And they know something about each other. And they know something about the risk that they all take to do this. And when push comes to shove, they will put themselves out there to help each other for no other reason than they get it. They're one of the same. I will promise you that every single member of that crew that day went home with a feeling of fulfillment. I promise you that every single person on that crew that day felt more good in their hearts and in their jobs than the richest days they've ever pulled in. My question is what are you doing to help the person next to you? Don't you want to wake up and go to work for the only reason that you can do something good for someone else? Wouldn't you want them to do that for you? Thank you very much.
There are currently about 250,000 people a year who are dying in our hospitals due to preventable deaths. And I'm not talking about negligence, I'm talking about little accidents, right? I'm talking about the doctor in the morning not properly briefing the doctor for the evening. I'm talking about things that we can't sue anybody. There's nothing that we can see that's wrong. But there's 250,000 preventable deaths every year. That's about 20 747s going down every single week. That's what's the equivalent to. And the confusing thing is that we have the best doctors in the world. We have the most advanced technology in the world. Some of the medical equipment we have is the best in the world. The medicines we have are the best in the world. So you start asking yourselves, why are these things happening? And the reason is not because of any of those things. The reasons are actually something vastly more simple. It's something very, very human. 5% of hospital administrators are doctors. Most of them are number crunchers. Hospitals are run like businesses. Hospitals are run by the numbers. And the problem isn't the people who are giving the care, they're very highly trained. The problem is the way those people are cared for. Because what we've done is we've created cultures in hospitals where the people who are doing the caring aren't cared for. And so all of these little preventable deaths are happening because they don't feel like they're a part of anything. They're just doing their jobs and they don't get along that well, and there's not a lot of camaraderie. And the impact is death, right? Now I use this example because it's exaggerated because the impact is so powerful. But the problem is the same in our own companies, right? Which is we come to work and we're told, you must care for your clients, you must care for your customers, you must make them the focus of all you do, and yet why aren't the people who are managing us from the top caring about us? So yes, in a hospital the impact is worse, but the impact that we're having on the outside world is just as bad. In other words, we're not working at our best. We don't care for the things we're doing. We're not helping each other is the most important part. And the residual impact is that we are unfulfilled by the work that we do. And when we're unfulfilled by the work that we do, we focus on the details. And when we focus on the details, we retract from each other. When we retract from each other, we feel lonely. And when we feel lonely, cancer goes up, heart disease goes up, diabetes goes up. In other words, by going to work, we're killing ourselves. Literally. There's another study that was released not that long ago that says that parents who work late, the negative impact that it has on their children is little to none. They may feel guilty as parents, but the negative impact that it has on the raising of their children is little to none. However, parents who come home from jobs they hate or don't love, their kids are more likely to be bullies at school. And now you think about the bullying epidemic we have in America, right? Where there's this disturbing number of young children who are killing themselves, suicides, because of bullies. The problem is not the schools, and the problem isn't even the parenting. The problem is the jobs the parents have. This is the importance and this is the power of the work that we do and the places we go to work, right? Most of us, I mean, like if you listen to the unemployment statistics, they say, you know, we're all-time high, record high, 9 to 10% unemployment, right? And people go, oh my God, that's terrible. And I hear that number and I go, well, that means 91% still have a job, right? Now, granted, we want to get that employment number up, but that means 91% are still going to work. The question is how many of them are coming home fulfilled by the work that they do, and how many of them are waking up inspired to go back to work the next day. If we don't love our works, we don't look out for each other, and if we don't look out for each other, we feel lonely. If we don't feel lonely, all these negative things happen. So what example can I share with a creative audience about how to change this? The United States Marine Corps. I had the great honor last week of spending a week with the Marines. I spent a couple days at Camp Lejeune, and then I went for a few days to Paris Island to watch them go through boot camp. And this is it's a remarkable, remarkable human experiment that they're doing. And even though they know what works, they don't know why it works, but they don't need to know why because they know that it works, right? But what's happening is they're taking a group of strangers, people who don't know each other, who are showing up and within a very, very short period of time, learn to trust each other so much that they would give their lives for each other, right? And we know, anyone who's ever worn a uniform knows that no one runs into battle for God and country. It doesn't happen. It's for the guy to the left of me and the guy to the right of me. That's the reason they do what they do, right? And these sort of remarkable stories of heroism where people rush into very, very dangerous situations to save others. And they always ask the question, why did you do it? Why would you risk your life? Why would you put yourself at risk for them? And the answer is always the same, because they would do it for me. In other words, what gives them the confidence to put themselves at great risk is the knowledge that someone would do the same for them. We would put ourselves at great risk for our companies if we knew that our companies would put themselves at great risk for us. But they don't. So we don't. Now, one of the things that's remarkable about the Marines, and if you go read, and you know, this is the most, I asked these young, and they're 21, 22 years old, some of these Lance Corporals, the grunts, you know, the guys, the infantry. I mean, this is the lowest of the low, the ones we actually send into battle, the front lines. And I asked them, are you misunderstood in America? And they said, yes, unanimously, they all nodded. I said, what do people think of you? And one stood up and says, they think we're baby killers. I said, how does it feel? He says, it hurts. And when I say, well, tell me a story then that captures to you what it means to be a Marine, the feeling you have of being a Marine, tell me a story that captures it. And I expected to hear stories of, I took a hit and somebody saved me, or I ran into a firefight and pulled somebody. I expected these stories of heroism. Not a single story like that came out. Now, I'm sure those stories exist, but those aren't the stories they told me that capture what it means to be a Marine. One of the stories they told me was a young boy in Afghanistan who would come around every morning and sell kebabs to the Marines. And then one day he showed up and he was all beaten up. And he didn't go to his parents for help and he didn't go to his friends to help. He came to the Marines for help because he trusted them more than anyone else. They told me a story that captured how they feel of a village that had been overrun by the Taliban. And the residents of the village couldn't go home because they would be killed by the Taliban, and so they were just living by the river. The problem was winter was coming. And one of the elders came to the Marines, knocked on the door and said, I need you to come down to the river and kill us. And the Marine said, what are you talking about? He says, if we go back home, we'll be killed by the Taliban, and if we stay out there, we're going to die slow deaths this winter. It's easier if you just come and kill us, please. The Marines overran the Taliban village, pushed the Taliban out. A year later, they went back to this village and people were playing volleyball. These were the stories they told me that capture what it means to be a Marine. They believe in doing good for others, and the fulfillment they get when they put themselves at risk so that others may prevail is overwhelming. This is not unique to the Marine Corps. This is all human beings. The feeling of fulfillment comes from doing something for another. The feeling from fulfillment comes from the exertion of time and energy for someone else. If you are walking to work and you throw a few pennies in a cup, and you come to work and you say to your friends, hey guys, I gave $1 to somebody homeless this morning. What are your friends going to say? Good, right? I gave $20 to somebody homeless. They'd be like, good for you, right? What if you come in the morning and you say, hey, I gave up my Saturday and I went and painted a school in the inner city? People go, whoa, cool, wow, cool. And all of a sudden, not only are they inspired to do something good themselves, but the feeling that you have persists. The amazing thing is that when we do good for others, it actually inspires others to do good for others. This is provided for us primatologically, anthropologically. It's all part of the survival of the species. You know, sex feels good so that we'll do it, so we can procreate and perpetuate the species. But we're social animals, and so we have to provide for the fact that we'll maintain strong bonds and build cultures, right? Because that's what humans do. We're cultural animals. And so when we do good for others and we look out for those in our tribe, we look out for those in our group, it actually feels good. Biologically, it releases oxytocin. This chemical that's released when you do good for others is released, and it makes you feel good. And the amazing thing is the more oxytocin you have in your body, the more you want to do good for others. The problem is we've replaced this feeling, the exertion of time and energy, with digital communications. We've replaced it with headphones. We've replaced it with money, right? Think about the invention of money, right? It used to be, money, it used to be like you go to someone's house, you cook them dinner, and the deal was they'll do the dishes. Time and energy, exchange for time and energy. And someone said, I'll give you an IOU, right? Someone says, I don't feel like doing the dishes, so I'm going to give you an IOU that I promise to do them another day, right? And that's what money is. It is the promise for future goods or services. The promise of future goods and services. In other words, we've replaced our own time and energy with promises for someone else to do it another day, right? In other words, there's no exertion of time and energy. And so the feeling people get is that I did something for you and you did nothing for me. You replaced it with a piece of paper, with an IOU, with a promise for future goods and services. The way we find fulfillment is by doing good for others. So how do the Marines do it? How do you get people to do good for others? We all know this. Intellectually, we know that it's good to do good for others, but why don't we do it then? Why don't we do it? And what the Marines learned is something that I completely did not expect. They can't just yell at these guys to help each other. That's not what happens. There's a few things that they have to do first. So we all have heard of the obstacle course, right? The Marines have a thing called the obstacle course, and this is where they build anaerobic strength and aerobic strength, muscle strength, and it's timed and all of this good stuff. They have another course called the confidence course, and it's never timed. And most of the obstacles on this course cannot be completed by yourself. They must be completed in teams. You have no choice. That's just how it's designed. And what they say is the first 2 weeks of boot camp, Everybody's there to outdo each other and prove that they're strong. Just kind of like when we start in a job, we want to show how great we are, we'll work a little harder, we'll do good work, look how good my design is, right? It's all about us and how good we are, right? But they keep putting them in situations where they can't do things by themselves, and what starts to happen very slowly, they said after about 2 weeks, they start cheering for each other. Now they get in trouble when they do, but they start cheering for each other. And then before too long, you see them organically start helping each other. And what happens is if there's one person who's weak and refuses to help the others, or even if there's one person who's strong, who's, I was the star college athlete, and they get to the end of every obstacle and they just stand there and wait for everybody to finish and they don't help each other, what starts to happen is organically the group starts to ostracize that person. Organically, they get ostracized until they learn that the only way that they will get through this thing, the only way they will survive boot camp, is if they ask for help because they have no option. The problem is, no one will help them until they're willing to help another. It's the deal we have to make. It's called vulnerability and risk. We have to take the risk to make ourselves vulnerable. Yes, you might do something for someone else and they may not do something back for you. That's the risk you run. That's the risk you run. It's not about giving everything to them and sort of huge, big, overwhelming risk. It's about little things and little things. It's like going on a date, right? It's like if I went on a date with somebody, I came home and I said, after one date I said, I'm marrying her. And people are like, what are you, nuts? I'd be like, I'm in love. They're like, but this is crazy. I'm like, oh, I know, I'm in love, She feels the same way. We both know it's nuts, right? Now you know that you're gonna be like, go on a couple more dates, right? We know instinctively that the strong bond that needs to be created first takes more than a week, right? We know that, right? But if I've been dating somebody for 7 years and we haven't, married, you'd be like, dude, what is wrong, right? In other words, we know that it takes more than 7 days and we know that it takes less than 7 years. The problem is, we don't know how long it takes. It's somewhere in the middle. All human bonds are the same. Like when you show up at work, when you show up for the first time, when you're new, don't expect that people will look out for you and they won't expect you to look out for them in 7 days. It won't happen. But if you've been working at a job for a few years and you don't have the absolute confidence that if you turn your back you will not get stabbed, you can rely on somebody, you can give them something, nothing will go wrong, you will share the credit, no one will throw you under the bus. If you don't have that in a few years, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I don't know how long it takes, but I know that's more than a week and I know it's less than 7 years. And the Marines fundamentally understand that before anyone is willing to put themselves out for another, they have to have self-confidence. Real self-confidence. You have to be confident in yourself and your own ability before you're willing to help another. If you're insecure at all about your own ability, it's sort of a paradox, right? How can I overcome my confidence, my self-confidence? And we all have ego issues at all times, we all do, right? But if I'm not confident in myself, I won't help another. It's a paradox because then we need someone to look out for us before we're willing to help our peers, right? This is what management is supposed to do. The drill instructors, the school, they're there, our parents, they are there for one reason and one reason only, to help us feel strong and good about ourselves. But look at the way we talk to each other. Look, a budget's been cut. And so what do you get told? I need you guys to do more with less, right? That's what we're told. Hey guys, I need you guys to do more with less. That's what we're told by our clients, by our bosses, by our parents. This is what we're told, right? That's like your parents telling you when you're young, I know you're stupid, figure it out, right? You're not as smart as the other kids. What do you want me to do? Right? It's the exact same thing. I need you to do more with less, right? What we need to be telling people is I need you to do more with what you have, right? You have capacity, you have strength, you have talent, you have ability. I need you to do more with what you have. We don't celebrate what we've got. We criticize for what we don't have. This is the responsibility of management, to take us under their wing and help us understand our own value to ourselves. Close your eyes and think back to high school. And think of that one teacher who took you under their wing and cared for you and looked after you and helped you realize that you are capable of more than you thought you were. And you probably are the person you are today in some part because of that person, right? Do you have that name? What's the name? Tell me the name. Tell me the name of the teacher. Okay, give me the name. Okay, I can point to anybody and you can tell me that name. Now tell me the names of all the other teachers you had that day. Can't remember them, can you? This is the power of those who teach us confidence. We will literally carry their names around with us for the rest of our lives. Wouldn't you want to be that person? Wouldn't you want to be the person that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, I can do this exercise with somebody and they will tell me your name? This is the power of helping others realize their own strengths. This is what management and leadership is supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be caring for us and helping us realize our own value. And by the way, if you have anybody who reports to you or works for you, your responsibility is not to make them meet the deadline. Your responsibility is not to make sure that they do as you say. Your responsibility is to make sure that they understand their own strengths, their own value, and that they are way, way more talented than they think they are. And the only way they will learn that is if you put them in situations in which they can fail. And you hold them and you support them and you give them talent and you give them skills and you give them education and you watch their backs, and if they fall over, you encourage them to get back up, and if they fall over, you encourage them to get back up, and if they fall over, you encourage them to get back up until they figure it out themselves. It's called confidence. It's your responsibility to help others find it, and it's others' responsibility to help you find yours. And the amazing thing is, as soon as you start feeling confident in your own ability, you naturally help each other. That's what happens. It's called trust. In the military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In business, we are willing to give bonuses to people who will sacrifice others so that we may gain. We have it backwards. And then we complain about how we don't love our jobs, and we complain about how the work is suffering, and we complain about how budgets are being cut, and we complain, and the first thing we do is blame each other and become more selfish and worry about my pay and my benefits and my this, and this is what happens. When we are unfulfilled, we look at the metrics and we say they're not good enough. When we are fulfilled, we don't care about the metrics. This is why when you have a job you love and you get a call that says, I'll offer you tons more money and great benefits, you're like, I'm not interested, I'm not interested, I'm not interested. I'm very happy here, but we'll give you more. That's not the reason I'm here. I'm here because I love it. I'm here because I care for the people I work with, and I'm here because the people I work with care for me. This is the world I imagine. This is the world I imagine. And here's the great thing. If you take little risks, I'm not talking about big things, little things. If you start doing little things for each other, the amazing anthropological response is other people will start doing little things for others too. I was walking down the street 2 days ago, and a guy's backpack was open and a whole bunch of paper fell out as he was walking down the street. And I happened to be behind him, and so my friend and I just we were in mid-conversation, and in mid-conversation, we never even stopped talking. We just bent down, sort of helped him gather his papers, hand them back to him, sort of pointed out that his book bag was, his backpack was unzipped, and he said thanks, and we walked on. It was like no big deal, right? We get to the end of the street, and we stand we're waiting to cross the street. We're still talking, we haven't stopped talking. And the guy in front of us turns to us and says, I saw you help that guy. That was really cool. But here's what's great about that. The guy will go do something for someone else simply because he saw us bend down and pick up paper for someone else. He will actually go do something for someone else because of it, right? He won't give to charity because he sees me put $1 in a cup, but he will actually help someone because he saw someone also help someone. Little things. Hold a door open for someone. Say thank you to the person who holds the door open for you. Smile to the barista. Little things. Put your foot in the subway when the door is closing so someone who's running will make it. Hit the open at the elevator. Don't go, or pretend you didn't see. That's the best one. Oh, I didn't wish I would have if I saw. Sorry, right? Do it. A little time and a little energy. And you'll find around work that people give a little time and a little energy back to you. And you'll give a little more time and a little more energy. You go for a coffee with someone. Then you go for a 2-hour coffee. Then you go for a coffee and a lunch. Then you go for a lunch and a dinner. Then you go for a dinner and a movie. And then you sleep over. And then you sleep over 2 nights. And then you go on holiday together. And eventually you get married, right? It's slow. It takes time. And we can't rush it. If when we rush it, it's all fake. Do things for others and watch how much others do for you. You go get yourself a cup of coffee from the coffee machine in the morning, make one for someone else. It takes a little extra time, it takes a little extra energy. That's the point. That's the point. And here's the best part. You will feel so good at the end of the day. So good. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. It's a great question. How do you convince someone, sort of what are the metrics? How do you convince a skeptical audience of this trust metric? You don't. You don't, right? You can't twist anybody's arm to do something that they don't want to do. And, the law of diffusion, which I obey, as much as I can, which is you don't need the majority, you need those people who believe what you believe. In other words, when you do some nice things for people, they may not do something nice back because they may be, we live in a world in which you do something for somebody, they think you want something from them, right? That's unfortunately the society we've created. But that's the risk that we keep taking. And I'm not saying you should keep doing it for somebody who keeps doing nothing and keeps sort of, crapping on you because of it. Then at some point you have to be like, all right, my bad, right? And you back off. I don't believe in helping everyone. I do not believe in it, right? This is not, let's do good for everyone on the planet. That's not what I'm talking about. Mother Teresa, who's the poster child for giving selflessly to all who need, at the end of her life started questioning the existence of God and, by the way, hated her life. Serious, okay? In other words, giving to others unabashedly is actually self-destructive. It doesn't help, right? And it's just like going on dates with people you don't like doesn't mean you'll eventually click and match, right? There's only one machine that I found that really accurately measures trust better than any other sort of metric. It's called a human being. It's really good at it, right? And so those feelings you get, trust them in one way or the other. It's the little risks, it's the butterflies, it's the unsure, it's the backwards and it's the dance, it's dating, it's the dance, it's the nerves, it's that. So if there are cynical bastards at your office who don't get it, ignore them, don't worry about it. Because eventually you'll get enough and those people either come along or leave, or be pushed out. Ostracized, remember? When the group starts helping each other, they ostracize the ones who refuse to help, whether they're strong or whether they're weak. They get ostracized until they learn that they cannot survive without the help of others, and they learn that the only way others will help them is if they help the others, right? The order matters. The order matters. I just thought of something that sort of is pervasive in our sort of, digital world. The order matters. Sort of speak honestly about what you want, right? If you are don't do things for people when you want something from them. Just ask them what you want from them. And I'll give you one little example. It's a funny little example. We've all received emails that go like this. Dear Simon, well, you wouldn't get an email to Dear Simon, but I would. Dear, insert your name, right? Dear Simon, haven't seen you in years. Hope you're well. Congratulations on all you've been doing. It's really amazing. We should get coffee sometime. If you could do me a favor, if you could vote for me on this website, I'm hoping to win, some $1,000 prize for my design, blah, blah, blah. Hope you're well, talk to you soon. Kenny, right? We've all received an email like that. And how do we respond to it? Right? Now, what happens if you get the same email that goes like this? Dear Simon, I'm hoping you could vote for me on this website. I'm trying to win some $1,000 prize for my design. I haven't seen you in years. I hope you're really well. Congratulations on all that you've been doing. We should get a coffee sometime. Thanks, Kenny. Totally different. In other words, when we know why you're emailing and it comes first, it has a remarkable impact. We know that all those pleasantries are just buttering us up to get to what they want, right? But if you come right out with what you want, we're actually very grateful for the pleasantries, right? It's the same thing in human interaction. Don't give someone a cup of coffee if you need a favor back. Just ask them for the favor. It builds trust. I can't trust you every time you do something nice for me. I think you want something from me. I won't trust you. And this is what companies do to us. right? Well, we did this for you, why won't you do this for us? That's not how it works. Generosity, bending down to pick up the papers, holding the door open for someone, is expecting nothing in return, ever. You do not give. This is what happens in new business, right? New business is built on relationships, and so we build the relationship, build the relationship, build the relationship until we're comfortable to ask for the business. In other words, you were only befriending me till the point you felt that I would let down my guard and you could ask me for something. The whole time you were just waiting for that time. It doesn't work that way. If you actually want to build relationships, you build relationships without wanting anything. And that's how you build trust. You want to know why the Marines gave me this incredible access? I mean, literally, they said, Simon, anything you want to see, you got it. Anything you want to do, you got it. You can go. We went past signs that said, no observers, no civilians beyond this point. I'm like, can I take pictures? They're like, go ahead. You should see some of the pictures. They're unbelievable, right? I'm like right in there, Marines coming at me. We went out to the Crucible, and they're all like, they're like rolling in the dirt and like, going under barbed wire, and I'm like, I'm not joking either. They're like, unprecedented access that journalists would be jealous of. Do you know why they gave it to me? Because in all the time that I've been visiting with Marines and having meetings with them, I've never asked for anything. I don't want anything, and I don't have anything to sell. I just keep showing up and say, what do you need? How can I help? And at some point they said, when I called them and said, I need a little favor, because they know I haven't been waiting for the favor. It's the time now that I have a little favor. They go, absolutely, whatever you need. It's called human relationships. Companies don't do business with companies. People do business with people. Your company didn't win IBM as a client. Somebody who likes somebody said, we'll hire you. And if they didn't like you, they're just, they're playing roulette. Well, we're betting that, this will work out. Those are the weak relationships. Yes?
How do you deal with the boss who's a jerk or he's not
Yeah.
getting it?
The more we give, the more it inspires others to give. But the more selfish we are, the more others become selfish around us. And so those are organizations in which selfish behavior prevails. And so we see the residual effects, which is they make decisions that ultimately screw us. They destroy our economy because of their selfish behavior, right? We know this is what happens. Same in politics, right? And the answer is, don't worry about it. I know it sounds silly, and I mean, your first question is, do I talk about these things to them? I will talk to anyone who will listen, But I don't talk to people who don't want to listen. The good news is, there are some good eggs, and there are some of them who've had conversions, where they were the bastards who believe in firing people and screwing people to advance their careers, and something happens. I just met a guy recently who was a very senior executive at a very, very large company, and something happened, and he got like hit in the head or something, and he realized, holy cow, I have to look after people, right? And they become obsessed with it, and they start sticking their necks out, and we just need those champions scattered around. And this is what I do. The more I spread this message, the more it's kind of like in the cartoons, sort of the whole of justice. The message goes out, and they all sort of wherever they are, they poke their heads up. It's that kind of thing. The more we talk about it, the more we put it in our work. Because don't forget, you're going to help someone who goes home feeling good, and their husband or their wife works in the bank. And they're going to talk how much about they love to, and that might inspire that person. It has all of these residual impacts that we don't really know. This is the funny thing about the internet, which is we're so proud of the internet that we can measure everything. No, you can't. You can only measure one layer, right? So for example, you say, Simon, what's the impact you're having? I don't know is the answer, right? I know I know that it'll take more than a week, and I know it'll take 7 years, but I don't know when it's going to happen, and I don't know how it's going to get there, right? All I can do is do it. Right? But I have no clue how or when. And so, for example, I can measure book sales, and I can measure how many hits, and I can measure how many people have watched a TED Talk and all of this, but I can't measure, that TED Talk being shown to a room of 50 people, and one of those 50 people doesn't buy a book, doesn't watch a TED Talk, doesn't do anything, but goes out and does something good for somebody else. I have no way of measuring that. And so we're so proud of the internet and its ability to measure everything, but we're measuring one layer where we used to measure no layers. It's like, this is how people work. It's gossamer, it's networked. And so the answer is, don't worry about them. Don't worry about them. Worry about the people who you can care for, who you can give to, and when we reach a critical mass in society, it will tip, right? And if you don't believe me, the reason it is the way it is now is because it tipped the wrong way. There was no such thing as massive layoffs as business strategy prior to in the 1980s. It just wasn't done. It was done here and there, but it wasn't strategy. The idea of using layoffs to balance the books is a relatively new phenomenon that came for the increase of selfishness in the Gordon Gekko greed is good 1980s boom, right? This was also the same exact period, the 1980s, where the theory of shareholder value was put forward, right? Because they had all of these people buying large companies and installing professional managers to run the companies that they bought, that they invested in, and they had a problem, which is those professional managers were paid for by the company, and those professional managers cared for the employees and the customers. And so the investors said, how do we protect our investments? We've got an idea. We're going to give them equity in the company and bonus them based on the performance, right? And so the shift happened where the CEOs started caring more about the investors and stopped caring about the customers and the employees. Those were theories introduced by some Harvard professor in the 1980s. We can push it back the other way, right? We can push it back the other way. But we just have to, and there was just the other day, which company was it? One of the large banks where the shareholder, Citibank. Yeah, Citibank. The shareholders voted, majority shareholders voted against a fat pay package. That's unprecedented. It has never happened, even in hard times, even when the company's doing this, the shareholders it's just sort of a cursory thing where they approve the $15 million bonus for the CEO. They voted against it. It's non-binding, but it sends a shot across the bow saying shareholders now want you to be bonused if you do something good for others. Even if the others is us, right? The point is that it's starting to crack, and so let's just stick our finger in the crack, you know, make sure that it keeps cracking. It swung one way, we can swing it back. The question was, can I talk about celebrating accomplishment while still asking for more, right? They did a study on kids who are really, really smart, like in all the gifted classes. Why is it when you're smart, you're gifted, and when you're stupid, you're special? Why is that? I was told my whole life I was special. It's not good. Never gifted. They took the gifted kids who were constantly told, you're so good. Oh, thanks for that. I knew you'd do well. Oh, you're our best employee. You know, you're our best student. You're awesome, right? And what happens is later in life, they actually suffer because they're very afraid of taking risk, because they're very afraid of losing their position on the mantle. Okay? Kids who are sort of more average, who constantly are rewarded not for their accomplishment, but for their effort. Great effort. Really proud of the improvement you made. What they find is they do very well in life because there's no shelf, there's always more. There's more effort, right? And so you want to reward and acknowledge effort. Even if they don't hit the goal, it's the delta. But at the same time, if it goes backwards, you'd be like, dude, what's going on? Like we shouldn't be giving ribbons for everyone who competes, right? Because what we're teaching people is, if you do nothing, you get a medal, right? And the funny thing is we're creating a generation that's feeling very hollow and feeling, this sense of entitlement that people complain about Gen Y. The entitlement is, I don't feel like I've accomplished anything. And the funny thing is about human beings is the way we feel accomplished is when we exert energy and time and reach a destination, right? And the more energy and time that we have to suffer through, especially if we suffer together and we get somewhere, it is overwhelming. Think about the best jobs you've ever worked on. Was it the best design? Was it the best results that the company had because of your project? Or was it an absolute hell project that you worked together and you came out on the other end and that you got it done at the deadline and you're like, that was amazing. It was the hell projects. It was the things that we had to go out of our ways more, do things for each other, right? Things we weren't thinking of doing. I was wrapping packages. I was doing stuff that designers aren't supposed to do. This is what produces that, right? And so the thing is about measurement and destination reward. Imagine we're standing in a big empty room, right? And we're standing in one corner and I give you a simple instruction. I want you to go to that corner in a straight line, right? Off you go, no big deal, right? Without telling you, I slip a chair in front of you. What do? You go around the chair. Now you just disobeyed what I told you to do. I told you to go to that corner straight line. But this is the amazing things about human beings, which is when we're given a clear destination, we use our own creativity and our own sense of innovation and our own problem-solving abilities to overcome obstacles to get to the destination. In other words, the destination is more important than the route, right? We're flexible about the route. We're obsessed with the destination. Reset. We're standing in the corner together and I give you a simple instruction. Go somewhere in this room in a straight line. And you say to me, well, where do you want me to go? I'm like, I don't know. You're smart, figure it out. Go in a straight line. And so you pick a point and you start walking. And without telling you, I put a chair in front of you. And what do? You come to a grinding halt. And I say, what did you stop for? You go, well, you put a chair in front of me. Or you'll make a sudden turn and go in another direction, right? And this is the problem. It's the same obstacle. The difference is when you have a clear destination, the obstacles become easy to overcome. When you don't have a clear destination, you keep coming to a grinding halt. And what we do in our companies is we're counting the steps we're taking along the route, but we're never looking at the destination, right? So a company says, made $1 million this year, we were only planning on making 800,000. Like we took 10 steps, we're only planning on taking 8. Where are you going? No clue, right? We count the steps. And so the point is that people want to feel that the effort that they're exerting actually are moving somewhere. And so successful measurement, successful recognition is not just for the steps you take. It's not just for the effort. It's that the effort you exerted moved us closer to where we're trying to get to. And that get to should be some crazy ideal. My ideal is to live in a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning, inspired to go to work and fulfilled by the work that they do. And the couple of measurements that I use are if the book is selling, and by the way, people ask me, how many have you sold? I have no clue. I've never asked the publisher because I don't care. I really don't care how many I've sold. What I care about is the Amazon rankings and that those are going steady or up and not plummeting, because that means other people, right? Because I don't have a publicist, I don't have a marketing strategy on purpose. I didn't hire one of those companies to sell the book for me. And the reason is because I'm not interested in book sales. I'm interested in the spreading of an idea. And so I just use that as a metric to help me understand, am I sort of marching because the more I preach, is it resonating? And so you have a couple of these imperfect measurements that help you understand, are you going along the way? So it's not just great effort, look what you achieved, because that's what we're doing now, right? Our goal is to increase top line revenues by $50 million. For what reason, right? Which is we have to know the destination, and then we say, amazing, you took us that much closer. And if we go to the right, it's because we were overcoming an obstacle. If we hadn't gone to the right, we would have been stuck forever. Thank you. It's not always straight lines. It's not always straight lines, but it's in one direction. She's pulling the cane out. Thank you very, very much.